Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back. If you're rejoining me tonight to lawsplaining the interwebs, if you're here for the first time or even the first time today, welcome. Welcome to the show. I am your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. Just a tiny little place. Just out here ruining the world or whatever it is that I do. I don't even know. But we have some interesting happenings happening all over the web and the world. And I am starting this stream early because we've got some, okay. So earlier tonight, I was interviewing Tim Pool. About his legal dispute, whatever you want to call it, against FOW Studios for making the Subverse game, which he says infringes upon his branding of the Subverse YouTube channel that he has been, and website, which he and his brother have been building for 5 years or so. Okay. Seems to have been blown out of proportion on Twitter. I was of the understanding that lawsuits are being served. But that doesn't seem to be the case at this point. There's a trademark registration that has gone into the Patent Trademark Office just this month. And now lawyers are being retained for discussion. It sounded like he was hoping for discussion. Now, as a result of me doing an earlier stream in the day to accommodate Tim, because he's a guy who wakes up early. I'm a guy who does not wake up early, and I stream very late at night. That's just how our schedules differ, and he's an hour ahead of me. I did a stream earlier than normal, but the thought was, I thought we were only going to talk for about an hour. But at the 2-hour mark, I needed to take care of some dad duties and father duties, husband duties, all that stuff. And so I had to cut the stream at the 2-hour mark, or just shy of the 2-hour mark. Now, as a result of that, there's a bunch of chats that are left over from there. Not all are for Tim. Some are for me. And I want to make sure those get addressed. So I'm starting this show early. We're going to start addressing those now. But let me tweet out that we are live right now. Let's see. Super early. Start. Come join. So we're live now. And I just want to put that out because, get people in here. But I want to start addressing these chats from the other stream first. So bear with me on that. We are going to get to Meyer versus Waid. I've got the documents loaded up in the spot where we left off, and we'll get right back into that. But first, here we go. Okay. End name withheld says just call it Beanieverse. Hennessy Blues to Tim. Tim, did you see the tweet about CBS show The Good Fight putting in clues about assassinating President Trump? Nick Monroe tweeted it. I don't know if Tim saw that or not. We didn't get to it. John McKellar, thanks for the donation. Striker Quiet says, if you're gonna vote for Buttigieg, you're gonna vote for Buttigieg, Tim Beta. Let's see. John McKellar says Subverse leather hats. That's a good one. Dusk says, love your content, Tim. Hope this works out well for you both. The Jack-O-Lantern says, Tim, revive Timcast Games. Nick, keep doing these great live streams. I will keep live streaming. Limbo Prime says, will you cover the PewDiePie T-Series lawsuit? Probably. Larry Bernard, to clarify, the risk for Twitter/Facebook is people white knighting and brigading. White knighting and brigading. On the platform and attacking people. That's killing Facebook and Twitter with the next generation and destructive to firms. Maybe. Umpty Madhu says Yang is pro-China style social credit. No hyperbole. That's the most repulsive view you could have. My opinions on any pro-social credit people violates TOS. Amtank says, what about the clothing company that started in 2013? Sorry, we didn't get around to asking him that. But there's probably enough distinguishment between a clothing company and a media company. Certainly more than a clothing company and a video game, or a media company and a video game company. But, you know, there we go. The Buzz CJC says, Tim, greater than Studio FOW Cucks. Padre speaks off topic, but when's the stream with Medicare R.E. Worski? And 2, which trader Primark is Worski? I don't know. I'm not aware of doing a stream with Medicare R.E. Worski. Oh my goodness. What? Okay. Guys, part of starting early, I have to step away for just a second. I'll be right back. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Oh my goodness. Oh, these kids. These kids. Oh, okay. Okay. Where were we? Yeah, I'm not sure that I am doing a stream with Medicare on Worski. My initial thoughts on Worski, I'll say again, are I think the guy's probably going to be okay, but we'll see. You have to see what develops. I don't know. Which trader Primark is Worski? Well, he's short, so Alfarius. Diego Rojas says, the term alt-right adjacent is utterly meaningless. I have commie friends. Does that make me commie adjacent? Only if you're standing next to them. The guy from that thing says, it's not a beanie, it's a kippa. His head's so small. Omega Ben says, keep up the hard work, Nick, and stay drunk. I'll try. Shane Gossman says, make Tim take the beanie off. I tried. He wouldn't do it. He said he's saving it. He's saving it for marriage. The Digga says, it's okay, Nick. You miss my super chats every time. Oh, no. How do I miss your super chats every time? Of course, I missed that one. John Hogg says, why no mention of the other subverses? Just this one that will be irrelevant in a year because it's a game. Will it be, though? What if they make a sequel? I don't know. That's a good question, though, because it is episodic. So it's one game. Even if they make another one, you've probably got a long wait between. But who knows? Because you have to. Zach Funk says, ignoring the Jews is why Tim will always be confused about the state of the world. Mazamonti says, Tim, love your content. My pals think the alt-right dominates. That's because the media pushes these crazy accusatory stories. The world is effed up. Ron Perlman says, hey, little Timmy, I took a dump in your beanie and sucked it out with a big gulp straw. How do you like them apples, Haas? That's a little offensive for Ron Perlman, I think. Neaz Roliat says, for being in media, Tim, you're so weak on Jewish power structures in media that I can't help but feel it's borderline dishonest, unlike Michael Tracy. Renegade Shuriken says, if you both work everything out amicably, will you voice a 6-armed space reporter named Mitloop, which wears a beanie if requested? That's a good one. Bobby Q, Tim, your 30-minute video inspired people to attack FOW staff and their subcontractors. So given your objective stances, why are you not disavowing? He actually did disavow that on the stream, said he wasn't aware of it. So you guys have to make that determination for yourself. Steam and Kickstarter are being flagged. Kairotan says, remember that one time soft card was called ISIS? The Bone Zone says, free my man's Alex, the strap gnome. My understanding is Alex is out of jail, but we'll see. Kid A2000 says, Tim is a confirmed/reaffirmed liberal who is the hero of the alt-light and First Amendment unless you mention Israel. Stop pandering, bald shill. Yellow Flash said, Renfamous dad is the CEO of an oil company. I saw that. Carapapas says, Tim Pool 500k sub bald reveal. Project Mange Punk. Tim, loved hearing you on Freedom Tunes. Name withheld says, don't get married, Tim. Red pill. Denal132 says, God bless you, Nick. I hope you and your family are doing well. We are. Love from a fellow Pole. Zach Funk says, Tim's fears of talking about Jews sounds like a bad case of the heebie-jeebies. Oh my God. Cameron Yelper said, my two favorite YouTubers together, y'all spoil us. Yellow Gamer says, Nick and Tim, I enjoy both your content. Any chance we can see more collab streams in the future? It sounds like that's a possibility. Hope everything gets resolved. Subverse has been good. Twin reverbs are loud. Tim, are you a fan of Fred Gall? AXI says, talk about the California magazine unbanned stay. No, I haven't read up on it. I can't really talk about it. Seth says, thoughts need men. Who would have thought? Killing Mac 007 says, hey, Nick, started watching Russell Greer vids. Lol. Enjoy them, buddy. I enjoyed making them so much. Rocket Ship says, men are over 70% of the net taxpayers. I wonder why feminists that depend on these men cheer the failure of young men. Moist John, when will we get Rekieta whiskey glasses for merch? Man, if I could source them, you'd have them already. The Nego says, hey, Tim, been a long-time listener. Your channel is extremely important with the nature of our political atmosphere. Your channel is unique in many ways, and you are making a change. Also, thanks, Nick. You're welcome. Ian Canant says, Nick Rekieta, my name is pronounced Conant. Canant. What? A kicks O. Ass. Make sure it say its name at Tim Pool. I love your wolf stuffed animal. John Doe says the Ides of April Operation Hammerfall begins. Oh man, tomorrow's going to be such a great day in the Vic Mignogna saga. Such a great day. And yes, to answer the question, the moment I get my hands on those papers, the day I get my hands on those papers, there will be live streams covering all of them. All of them. Craig Litton says, I'm conservative. We need more liberals like Tim who can actually have a debate and argument with. Nowadays, that's a rarity. Believe Bulma says, you can't take down my patch. Hashtag don't fear the beard. Oh, you little harlot. Don't tempt me. Don't tempt me. Blaine20 says, not to derail, but does Tim think there will be a 3 or 6 month follow-up with Jack and Viaja to see if they implemented the things they kept saying they were working on to fix bias? I don't know. Matt Field says, Subverse is Kurt Eichenwald approved. Guys, Kurt Eichenwald. I have news. I have news for Kurt Eichenwald. Okay? This is fresh. The guy who sent allegedly a GIF that allegedly sent Kurt Eichenwald into an alleged seizure and is charged with like attempted murder via GIF or whatever. No, I think he's being sued for battery over the interwebs. The attorney for that guy and I have made contact, and he has expressed a willingness to come on stream and talk about the Kurt Eichenwald case, as well as some of his other First Amendment cases. First Amendment cases, such as he took the Texas revenge porn statute all the way to the Supreme Court. and had it overturned. I think the Texas Supreme Court had the Texas revenge porn statute taken down, which is an interesting, controversial victory for First Amendment speech. So as soon as I can get that arranged and work that out with him, hoping to have a great show with him. He sounds like a very cool attorney, and I would love to have him come on and talk about Kurt and the theory of this case, because it's a wild theory. It's a wild theory by the prosecution, or by the other party. So just so you are aware, that's coming. That's coming. Dorby says trademarks are registered for specific listed uses. Tim has prior use for news and topical affairs, not video games. Both brands can exist in different markets. See Apple Core versus Apple Computer. Oblivion Hollow says Tim didn't own the brand name until 6 days ago, by the way. Actually, registering a trademark doesn't start the ownership of the trademark. That's just registration. That's a different issue. The Ryan Cardinal says, Nick, can I get a plug for my upcoming action fantasy manga? It's called Caius, A Story of Blood and Stone, launching May 7th on Indiegogo. Oh my gosh, I can't read. Oblivion Hollow says, why wait until FOW goes big to do it 10 days after? You're talking about the registration again. Sometimes people don't realize you need to register their mark until it gets infringed upon. It's just how business sometimes goes. Mithrin Emrys says, speaking of tomorrow and lawsuits, it'll be interesting to see how Mr. Rial reacts on Twitter after he gets his 400 plus pages of documents. I think he may already have them. I predict no change and a lot of false bravado incoming. He better stock up on soy milk. There you go. Cypress says, sounds to me that if Tim wasn't at risk of losing his trademark, that he wouldn't have cared if that board game used Subverse. That's the impression that I got. That's really the impression that I got. But, he's being advised by a bunch of people, including lawyers, that says you've got to defend this or else you're going to lose it. Name Withheld says, Tim, please do a follow-up on thought economics. That's a fascinating subject. The economics of thoughterry. Man, if he does that, I really hope he talks to me about it, because I think that would be a great thing to have, a legit economic paper talking about the economy of thought. AXI says, I'm Axie, CEO of Rekieta Lawful Pleasure Dolls Incorporated. Oh no. I hope they're judicious in the bedroom. Party 7319 says, why is everyone in chat against Tim? Well, it probably wasn't everyone. It was probably a minority of people. He worked hard to get where he is. I wish people would research before going after people. Love you, Tim. Watch you every day. Also, hashtag make beanie merch. Talbot Link says, for those that think personal name and brand name are the same, Tim worked similar to me on the trademark issue. Personal interaction is self. Business equals brand. People interact with me using my name and products under my studio name. There you go. Oblivion Hollow says he could do it. He couldn't do this to the smaller guys years back because he had no legal claim to it. He's being dishonest. He didn't own the trademark until 6 days ago. Again, registration of your trademark is not ownership of your trademark. That's very different things. Wizards First Rule 57 says, hey, Nick, completely off topic. What do you think Wizards First Rule? What do you think of Wizards First Rule by Terry Goodkind? I have not read it. I have not read any Terry Goodkind books. Goodkind books. Haven't read it. And then Moist John says, Kekistan was a throwaway poll meme, you cringe lord. Ouch. Bringing in the brutal. Right away. There's just a couple more chats from the last stream that I want to read here. Let's see. Night of Hopex says, Tim, that thing you just said about thoughts is how we as conservatives think about welfare in society. When you have too many people riding and not enough people pulling, society breaks down. Read some Thomas Sowell. You guys on the left need to reconsider. Tyler says, I'm not sure if it will go to a full-on legal battle, but you might want to look into the divisive dynamic vape review personally. Jay Hayes versus Ion Mods. Yes, I need to actually look into that. I need to look into that. I have not had time. I really want to. It is baby killing and stolen valor involved. High and salty over harsh J Hayes review. Juicy stuff. Yeah, I believe J Hayes actually reached out to me on that, and I have been really bad at getting back to him. So J Hayes, if you happen to see this, buddy, I apologize. I am gonna review the video you sent me, and hopefully we can talk about it. Y says, my only criticism of Tim is that he sometimes spends too much time reaffirming his views and are trying to fence sit. My criticism of Tim is very minor, and I think it was that he seems to be a marketing guy, come from some sort of marketing background and branding, or maybe he's just got a lot of experience with it over the time of building up Vice. But if you notice, he reiterated and restated his statements, and he had go-to concepts that he wanted to get across. And so anytime a point came up, he wanted to go back. He wanted to go back to that I don't want to call it a talking point. It wasn't really a talking point, but it was to restate the marketing push that he was going for and the branding around the issue. It was very it's astute, it's well done, but it can be kind of overwhelming, you know, on a 2-hour live stream to cycle back to the same points multiple times. Okay, Y says, to add to my last post, Tim's general diction makes him sound more like a charismatic mundane Matt. It's somewhat disingenuous. Ooh. Knight of Hopex says, you might want to mention to the audience that owning a media brand like Subverse is a protection against being blacklisted online and social media. It's harder to blacklist an entire media organization than it is to run one guy out of town on a rail. That's a very good point. Very good point. All right. That is all the chats from last stream. I, again, am very sorry to have to shut it down a little early, but man duties took over. Let's see. There's a $20 chat to start, and then we're going to go into the Meyer versus Waid case. I'll do a brief recap of where we are, and then we'll hit it hard. We'll hit it hard. Phoenix Aurum says, your special guest host, Nick's Whiskey Shelf, 10 out of 10. Yeah, it is a good guest host. Always a good guest host. We'll talk about that. Next we've got I Like the Spike Man says, you Studio FAO folks, FOW folks, disgust me. Laura with horse, silent, take your bestiality elsewhere. You are just as bad as furries. Ooh, there you go. Shots fired. Shots fired. All right. Recap. Meyer versus Waid. Or one brief thing. Let me talk very, very briefly about Kamea and Vic Mignogna and all that stuff that's been going on. I got a message. From a voice actor following Kamea. Okay? Not following Kamea, following the report about Monica Rial's line at Kamea. Again, the numbers reported for Rial were somewhere between 75 and 90 people, something like that. And some people were kind of wondering what those numbers are like, self included, because I saw Vic's line. I heard he signed for 9 straight hours, 9.5 hours, something like that. But it doesn't put the numbers in perspective, okay? So this particular voice actor typically signs about 100 people in an hour. So that is to get some perspective. So in the 6 hours of Monica Rial sitting at this comic shop in Irving, Texas, or Frisco, Texas, or wherever it was, she did the equivalent of an hour of a high-level voice actor. So there you go. That's to give you a comparison. That is ouch. That is ouch. You don't want to be You don't want to be, you know, I've done 6 hours of work for 1 hour of pay plenty of times. Don't ever enjoy it. I don't ever enjoy doing that much work for that little pay. So there you go. There you go. Woo. Okay. So I just wanted to give that brief little update. I have not heard much about Kamea-Con's stuff today. Kamea-Con stuff today is, I mean, being quiet, I assume it went very well. So hopefully it did. Hopefully I can report some more on that tomorrow. And yes, it sounded like Ty Beard on this stream yesterday kind of gave a pretty strong indication that tomorrow was going to be interesting for multiple parties. I believe he said there were 4 parties specifically. So there's speculation abound on who the 4 parties are and stuff. Will they be served tomorrow? Maybe. Will the lawsuits be filed tomorrow? Almost definitely. So there's some confusion here. Different states do it different ways. In Minnesota, the lawsuit starts effective upon service of process and filing comes later. In Texas, you file first and then you serve, or you have the court serve. So the filing will occur and then the service of process will happen either by a private process server or the state can be employed to do that. Or if it's in federal court, you have the private process server, or you would have a U.S. Marshal. You could have them do the service as well. So there you go. That's looking forward to tomorrow. Would Ron and Monica be sued separately? I don't know if they're going to combine courses of action for people or cause of action for people. I guess it would depend on if the factual scenario is the same or separate. Those two are probably the most likely to be sued together. They may sue all of them together. I don't know. There's a lot of factors to be put in, and that's a lot of strategy involved. And even if you sue them separately, the court may require joinder on the issues because they all stem from like the same list of transactions, but we'll have to wait and see. We'll just have to wait and see on that. So there you go. Oh, and of course I did show on stream Ron Toye's pile of tweets, 400 tweets being organized and being put into an envelope for that crybaby to receive. Hopefully he got that either on Friday or Saturday, but I guess maybe he could get it tomorrow too. But to be clear, that 400-page letter is not a lawsuit. That is not the lawsuit. That is a as Ty was explaining, that is a takedown letter. That is where it's a demand to take down all of the defamatory statements that have been made. So that's why it's so many pages. All right, should we get on to this Meyer versus Waid stuff? We get on to this Meyer versus Waid stuff? I think we should. Let me move over to the here we go. Oh, there we go. Siren Jag says, I tried to tell everyone that all of Nick's bottles are for show. His liquor of choice is now Everclear, and his only mixer is now that 4-color box of food coloring that you buy at the supermarket. According to Kick Vic, you have to believe me now. You know, it's not that far from the truth. Not that far from the truth. Okay, here we are. So we are on page 61, which is actually page 9 of the document, because there are chunks of it that are redacted out. Okay, there are chunks of it that are redacted out, or you know, removed because they're irrelevant. You know, like the court doesn't need to know about Mark Waid's backstory, but in deposition, you go through a bunch of stuff that may not be useful to the case at all. So the only redacted stuff, there's some lineouts in there, but there are parts of the deposition that are not included, and that's fine. That's fine. It's irrelevant to the court, And part of deposition is just asking questions and either building rapport, building fear, building anxiety, building tension. You know, you do a lot of different things. It's all in the strategy of what you're going for. So that part has kind of been left out. I believe we got the very beginning and then a big chunk of missing pages, and then we jump far into the document. Okay, here we go. So, I guess technically we have to go back to this final question on page 60. In this excerpt, this is from Daniel Byrne. Byrne is the attorney for Meyer. Pierce is the answering attorney for Waid. Waid is the witness. So every time it says witness, I will try and say Waid, unless it's just we're flowing back and forth. Meyer is there. Mark Zaid is there. I don't know if he speaks up at all during this, but imagine that Mark Waid, and this is part of the funny part, right? Mark Waid had to fly Pierce in from Texas and had to fly Zaid in from Texas and pay them for the time that they were in this deposition. So good job bringing both of them. I hope they were both helpful. In this excerpt, you're referring to Antarctic Press, correct? Correct. And you're using they, but you're really referring to Mr. Meyer, are you not? Objection to form from Mr. Pierce. Waid says they harass. When they harass, you mean in that context, but they harass, they do this? Yes. Yes is answering the question. You're referring to Mr. Meyer. So yes, when he's saying they and they harass, he means Meyer harasses. Ooh. Byrne says, okay. Then there's back to the audio. So here we have the audio. What object to form actually means. So objecting to form objects to the form of the question. So if a question is confusing, it's literally how the question is structured. So a question is overly vague, or if you ask multiple things in the same statement, you would object to that. If the answer that someone is giving is unclear based on the question that was asked, you would object to form. Really the only thing it's pretty much the only thing you can object to in a Texas deposition. That's why he's doing it all the time. But what it really means, and this is the takeaway, because in deposition, you still have to answer questions even when you object to form. Even when you have an objection, you have to answer over the objection. The risk, if you don't want to answer, the other attorney says, all right, we'll get a judge on the phone. And then you have to explain to a judge why he's picking up a phone call over your petty objection in a Texas deposition. And if the objection is not to the question like, why do you murder babies in Africa or something, something completely incendiary, irrelevant to the case, if it is irrelevant and all of that stuff. If the objection's not involving that, then you've got to answer the question anyway. So judge doesn't want to hear your petty squabbles. So they object to form for the record, but it's really, what it really means is pause. It's a cue from the attorney to the witness to shut up for a second, think about your answer before you speak. That's what they should have told Mark Waid. Every time we say object to form, think about it, because you might not want to answer this in the way that comes naturally. You might want to think about it. So there you go. All right, back to the audio. This is Mark Waid's audio from a Houston, Texas Comic-Con. And my feeling is, look, let the baby have his bottle. I don't care who publishes the comic. I don't care whether you publish this comic or not. I don't care. But I knew the publisher, and I don't think he was aware of why all of a sudden it was this giant groundswell of hate towards him. So I said, before we burn this place to the ground, stop the tape. Byrne says, I'm going to pause there. What did you mean here when you said, before we burn this place to the ground? Referring to your conversation with Mr. Dunn? Object to form. Waid, it was a hyperbolic statement that before the industry as a whole decides to condemn them, listen to that! Before the industry as a whole decides to condemn them, Let's find out what they really knew. Give them the benefit of the doubt that they were not aware. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, that is a terrible answer. Byrne says, were you conveying that that he had not changed his mind? You would have been one of the people burning this place to the ground, metaphorically speaking. No, object to form. No, sir. Okay, back to Mr. Byrne. Back to Byrne. Okay, audio plays. Let me call him and just find out what's going on. Whether he understands really what's being, if he wants to publish it, it's great. I don't care, but I know the guy and I want to make sure he knows why the hordes of hell are descending upon him right now. That seems reasonable, right? Byrne stops the tape. And what did you mean by your reference, the hordes of hell? Answer. Another hyperbolic reference to the fact that there was such a huge social media outcry against this from the industry. From the industry. And remember that in the minds of everybody, Waid is from the industry. He's literally talking about wielding the industry in all of this. Before we burn them to the ground, let me, Mark Waid, industry big swinging jabroni, come in here and deal with this. Okay. All right. So audio recording plays again. Long story short, I did call the publisher and I said, look, you do what you want. And I'm not asking you to not publish it. I'm not saying anything. And the answer was, oh my God, we had no idea. Like, we really didn't vet this before we decided to publish it. And so they made an announcement. They weren't going to publish it. So I'm going to pause this there and analyze what happened. I'm going to pause this there. So I called them and I said, look, I'm not saying nothing. I'm just not, I'm not saying nothing, but I'm not saying nothing. And then their response was, wow, we really didn't know. We didn't vet it before we decided. Now, in brackets, because this is how you argue this, that you've called and told us, now we're not going to go through with it. Devastating to the case. Absolutely devastating to the case. And this was audio that was before the deposition that was out there. Back to it. Okay, back to the audio. That's their choice. I wasn't intimidating them. I mean, guy, let me be clear, right? The people have tells, when they're lying. When Obama's lying because he says, like 5,000 times. And then he says, let me be clear. And then he opens his mouth. The next words were a lie. Mark Waid, you can see it. I'm not doing this. I wasn't intimidating them. I wasn't pushing them into doing one thing or another. I just wanted to look out for him, make sure he understood why people were angry at him. And so that's what turned into me getting death threats. Always go to the death threats if you're social justice. Always, always, always run to the death threats. It's like a reverse Iron Maiden song. Run from the hills, run to your death. Because where do they always go? They always go straight to the death threats, even though they didn't happen. Even though they didn't happen, or they're being intentionally misinterpreted, or the person's too stupid to read basic English. The death threat was something like, hey, it would be great if you died in a car accident or something because you're a trash human. That's not a death threat. It's distasteful. It's uncouth. It might be rude. Might hurt your feelings. If you're Mark Waid, you might cry a whole bunch or whatever and throw a tantrum. Doesn't matter. Not a death threat, but they will always run to the death threat. Mithra Nemris says, so 1, Waid is the comic industry as a whole, and 2, Big Brother Waid will tolerate no wrongthink. And if Waid was buddies with the publisher, he knew they were in Texas. Zayden Pierce, come up with a settlement amount now. And that would be stellar advice because they are about to get reamed. absolutely run through. Like a thought trying to buy a car. Okay. Death threats, 5-6 hours for a while. Because I'm clearly hate. Clearly hate conservatives because I didn't. I said, all right, clearly I'm bullying comic. I'm bullying publishers. I'm calling publishers and bullying them into not public. If I could bully publishers, I'd be rich. If I could bully publishers, I'd be writing Superman tomorrow. Waid, you lying, disingenuous pile of trash. I have to get into this. I have to pause this myself. If you could bully Marvel and DC, you'd be writing Superman tomorrow. But you can bully Antarctic Press, and you did, because they're not publishing Superman. And you know it. There'd be so many things I would be doing if I had a power to make publishers do what I wanted them to do. Does that kind of answer your question? People can, feel how they want to feel. Yeah, you aren't with them, are ya? Audience laughter. Okay, I didn't drive you guys out, did I? One more question. How embarrassing. Ugh. So Burn stops the tape. Okay. Does that rest of that audio confirm that the transcript marked as Exhibit 2 is accurate? Mr. Pierce, object to form. You mean word for word verbatim? Burn, I'm asking him that, yes. Waid, with the possible exception of an and or a the every once in a while, but substantively, yes. So he confirms that the transcript is authentic. Good job. Now they can enter that transcript as evidence. They've authenticated it. They confirmed that the audio is authentic. That's evidence now as well. Okay, back to Burn. Okay, and there's a reference in here, Mr. Waid, to 5 or 6 hours of death threats. What are you talking about here? Object to form. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. Go ahead. This is funny. This is a bad move on Pierce's part, right? He should have objected to form. Go ahead. Object to form. But by saying, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. He just goes ahead and forecasts what they're going to use as part of their argument. They're going to use a Waid victim narrative. So Burn gets a crucial piece of information out of Pierce because Pierce was too silly to realize that he could just stick with objecting to form. He's objected to form 1,000 times so far. It doesn't matter to do it again. Now, though, he says, oh, wait, I'm sorry. I care about that. Go ahead. It's the little things. Waid says, I'm talking about the fact that once AP made their announcement, all of Comicsgate descended on my Facebook feed like locusts, peppering posts, not only about comics, but about, my dog. I mean, figuratively speaking. Well, what posts? This isn't about figurativeness. But I mean, it had nothing to do with any of this. The F you, Mark Waid. F you for doing this. I hope you rot in hell. I hope you die over and over again. Those aren't death threats. Listen, never ever can they produce a death threat. I hope you die isn't a death threat. Within the next 5 or 6 hours. The whole rest of the evening was me having to try and delete and shoo off all these flies who were descending upon me with absolute hate, blaming me for what happened. Well, what would give him that idea, Mark? What would give him that idea, you cuck? Burn says, do you still have any documentation of death threats you received? No, of course not. Anything I have, I would have provided already. So did you delete anything that would have evidenced death threats by anyone in response to what happened with Antarctic Press? I mean, I wish I hadn't, but I did at the time. Why give them more of a platform to keep screaming? Oh man, quelle coincidence! Huh. Quelle coincidence! CNN Slayer says, Nick, 2 questions. Would Meyer versus Waid in Vic's case be big enough to set a precedent? Also, do you think Ty would like to own a prop hammer of Sigmar? Man. I think Ty would like to own a prop hammer of Sigmar. That thing's awesome. But I don't know. How huge is it? Maybe. Are they big enough to set a precedent? They'll only set a precedent if they rule and then go to appellate court and then have some sort of ruling at the appellate level. I don't think that's going to happen. Okay. When did you delete those posts? Notice what they're doing here, right? Byrne is establishing that the death threats thing is completely false. He can't put any effort, any evidence of the death threat up. It's just a narrative talking point. Pretty much as they were happening. The idea was to stiff arm and try to keep it from becoming a giant, as I put it, a landing. So a giant a landing is Renfamous, you idiot. My social media became a landing strip for lunatics. Did you take any of the death threats seriously, or did you think of it as venting by folks on the internet? Well, at first you take it as venting, but there's only so many times you can get that kind of stuff without it reaching into your head a little bit. That's not an answer to the question. Did you take it seriously? Did you call the cops? Of course not. Of course they didn't call the cops. Okay, and again, I'm going to just make the record clear. The recording that I played in the course of the deposition is, I think, labeled full 5-minute among several files on that thumb drive. And I also tendered you a duplicate, Ryan. That's to Mr. Pierce. So I also tendered you a duplicate, Ryan. So Byrne then asked the question, did you ever uncover any direct evidence of white supremacy statements on the part of Mr. Meyer? Again, object to form. How does this relate to jurisdiction? Because we're starting to yonder into, I think, more substantive areas in a way that is really getting away from the court's order. This has nothing to do, Byrne, stop. Well, Pierce says, with jurisdiction. Byrne, adept. I think if there are defamatory statements made in Texas and there's a reference to white supremacy tied to Mr. Meyer, I think I'm entitled to explore that a little bit. Of course he is. Of course he is. Of course he's allowed to explore that. This is deposition, buddy. You don't get to, oh, we're going to narrow the scope of the deposition. No. No, this is your bad. This is your bad for bringing a motion that would allow deposition of your client. Now you've got it. Now you have to deal with it. Pierce responds, okay, I get you. I'll give you a little bit of room. A little bit of room? What are you going to do? What are you going to do to him? Waid says, ask it again, please. Ask it again, please. Please make voices. No, I'm not going to do voices on this. It'd be awful. It'd be awful. Mr. Byrne, do you have any basis to substantiate a contention that Mr. Meyer is a white supremacist? Object to form. Waid says, I would say in the materials I provided to the court, his various social media posts about how, it's not a, the one about the, it's not what a sideshow or a circus, whatever, when you hire black people for comics, that sort of thing that's in there. Yeah, absolutely. Now, you got the lie, right? You saw the lie. It's right there on paper. It's not, it's not a, the one about the, it's not what a sideshow or a circus, whatever. At least indicated a propensity toward what we refer to as white supremacy these days. It's a pretty broad spectrum. Listen to that. Listen to it. It's right there in the open for the world to see. Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to share that. what we refer to as white supremacy these days is a pretty broad spectrum. Whoa. Whoa. Burn. Do you have any documentation or other evidence of Mr. Meyer directly espousing white supremacist doctrines, or are you inferring from the materials you submitted to the court that he must think that way? I'm going to criticize Burn here. I think he should have separated this into two clear questions. Because the first one, he would have to answer no. He'd have to. And so then he'd have to get the inferred comment. Here's objective form. What statement is this tied to? I mean, what specific? You mentioned a defamatory statement. Burn. He's talking about moving things back towards white supremacy. Waid says, are you asking, is there a specific moment when I am aware of he said, I am a white supremacist? Mr. Burn. Or espoused principles you associate with white supremacist. Waid, I associate? Absolutely. Again, I stepped on you. I apologize. That's a dangerous place to be under the foot of Mark Waid. A lot of weight behind that leg. Burn says, okay. And are all of these all of those materials to substantiate that, are those included among those that you submitted to the court in connection with the motion that's pending? Object to form. I don't know why. Perfectly fine question. To the best of my recollection, that's correct. Burn. And you certainly produced all of them to us in the course of discovery, or have given them to your lawyers to produce to us in the course of discovery. Correct? Object to form. To the best of my recollection, yes, sir. I think that might be Wade's first good answer. That might be Wade's first good answer in the entire thing. In the entire thing, that was a good answer. Good job, Mark. Good job. Okay. Back to Burn. Or wait, no. Plaintiff's Exhibit 4 was marked for identification by the court reporter and was attached here too. Okay, now back to Burn. Sorry. I think you testified earlier. You don't recall ever characterizing Mr. Meyer as a doxer. I don't recall that. Now, Burn should have asked for clarity, in my opinion, here, and says, you don't recall not recalling characterizing him as a doxer, or you don't recall characterizing him as a doxer. I think this answer is a little ambiguous. But Pierce says, this has nothing to do with the Houston. So to clarify, now you're getting into statements that aren't tied to that meeting in Houston or the Q&A session in Houston. Is that right? Burn says, I mean, I think we're just getting too far afield here. Burn says, all right, we'll save that for the merits. So Burn gives him a little bit. Little pat before going back. What exhibit number are we on? The reporter says 4. Pierce says thank you. Burn says no, we're on 5, which is correct because the reporter just marked 4. Reporter says, you want to keep that as 4? Burn says yep. Reporter says, can I remark that, please? Witness says, oh, sure, of course. Plaintiff's Exhibit 5 was marked for identification by the court reporter and was attached here too. Burn says, sorry, I wasn't real clear. Burn says, Mr. Waid, I'm going to hand you what's been marked as Exhibit 5. And represent to you that this is a printout from the internet of the Antarctic Press webpage as it appeared in May of 2017. And just ask you to glance over that and see if that refreshes your memory about whether you may have used that as a tool to locate the phone number for Antarctic Press before you left your message for Mr. Dunn. So here's what Burn did. He was asking the same line of questioning earlier. If you'll remember, if you were watching yesterday, Burn was not getting anywhere with this line of questioning. Where'd you get the phone number? Well, I probably got it from somebody, maybe. Who'd you ask? Well, I can only think of one person and they didn't have it. So where'd you get the number? Well, I would have gotten it from the industry person, but so where'd you get it? Did you look it up on the web? Well, I don't know. I don't know where I got it. I have no idea. I wouldn't have gone to the website. No. So then he goes through that whole thing about the Houston with the defamation statements. He asks some other questions. Restart the brain, right? Now he's going to go back and try to get him to contradict those earlier statements. He's still under oath. If he makes a statement now that contradicts the old statements, That's perjury. They can win immediately on those types of grounds. Or he's going to try and get him to shock his memory, get him off foot maybe, to try and get him to release that information. So that's the strategy that I would wager quite a bit that Byrne is going with here. Okay, Waid answers, and Waid's got a good answer. No, sir, I have no memory seeing any of this before. Okay, do you see the name Doug Dunn? Second to last page. I do. Do you know whether you spoke to Mr. Dunn when you called and left your message? Waid, I have no idea who I spoke to at the time. So seeing his name there doesn't ring a bell. I know it was a woman. My recollection is that it was a woman. Let me rephrase that. But you don't remember her name. That's correct. By the time you made the call to Antarctic Press to make sure that they were informed, had you already been receiving death threats, or did those come in the wake of your conversation with Mr. Dunn and the cancellation? Specific to this incident in the wake of, although death threats are sadly a part of being a public figure, I've gotten many of them in the past. Why, Mark? Why? Why? You know, Pierce is like, oh, you idiot. Shut up. Waid, you just established that the death threats that you were receiving may have had absolutely nothing to do because you just regularly get them in the past. Many of them. Who's to say you weren't getting them now because of something else? The ones you can't produce, the ones that you deleted, and the ones that have no evidence of being tied to this situation. Pierce is gouging his eyes out and ripping his ears off at this point. Do you remember talking about death threats in your conversation with Mr. Dunn? I have no recollection of that, no, sir. It could have come up, you just don't remember? I don't remember. And I take it you don't deny that the phone call you had with Mr. Dunn on the afternoon of May 11th, 2018 might have lasted as long as 27 minutes? Object to form. It might have. Plaintiff's Exhibit 6 was marked for identification by the court reporter and was attached here too. Waid says, thank you. Byrne, and I'm handing you what's marked as Exhibit 6. Is this a correct copy of a Facebook post that you posted on the afternoon of May 11th, 2018, while you were waiting for Mr. Dunn to return the message you left? Yes, sir, that's accurate. Plaintiff's Exhibit 7 was marked by identification, or for identification by the court reporter, and was attached here too. Waid says, thank you. Byrne says, I'm handing you what's been marked as Exhibit 7 to your deposition, Mr. Waid, and ask you to confirm that this is a series of text messages exchanged between you and Mr. Dunn beginning on Friday, May 11th, 5:51 p.m. and continuing several days thereafter, whereupon the witness reviews the exhibit. That's accurate. Yes, sir. Byrne says, okay, because the last series of text looks like it's dated Tuesday, May 15th. Is that your interpretation as well? Waid says, I'm not sure where you're seeing a date on the last round of, or I mean last. Well, if you go to page 2, you see Saturday, May 12th. Right. There's a Bates number at the bottom. That's from Pierce. I don't know if it's supposed to say dates, but it says Bates number. Oh, no, it says Bates. Byrne says, you go to page 4, which is Bates numbered, defendants 9. There's a May 15th. And that's the last date change I see in this. Am I missing something, or did all this happen on Tuesday? All the entries after that day happen on Tuesday, May 15th, as you interpret this. Well, my recollection is there was a gap between I'm happy to leave, as you see it says, I'm happy to leave you, and it's cut off. And then the next one starts up with, what have I done to offend you? My recollection is there was a gap there. Okay, so there must have been like in the pages, I'm happy to leave, that, and then some, page break, and then a new page that says, what have I done to offend you? So there's clearly some part of that message that got cut off, and there could have been a gap in time there. Don't really know, but that's what I'm picking up from this. It's kind of a weird thing to read through. It was a separate conversation. A day or two later. Okay. Waid says, all right, can we take a bathroom break real quick? Sure. So they go off record. They're back on record after a couple minutes. Byrne says, shortly. So this is the end of this deposition. Shortly after your call with Mr. Dunn on May 11th, within days at least, you took down your Facebook page. Is that right? Yes. I didn't close the account, but I took down the Facebook page. Yes. And did anyone advise you to do that? Or is that something you decided to do independently of third-party suggestions or totally on my own? I stepped on you again. I'm sorry. And is that because of negative feedback you were getting from supporters of the Antarctic Press publication of Jawbreakers that were unhappy with your role in that not happening? Object to form. Because of the incessant, yes. Byrne says, have you spoken to Mr. Ben Dunn or Mr. Joe Dunn since May 11th of 2018? You mean other than texts? Right. I have not. Okay. Are there any texts with either of the Dunns besides those that we've just reviewed that are marked in evidence? Not to the best of my recollection. If they're, because of the way these are cropped on the screen caps, as I already indicated, there's one balloon that was, cut off, I'm happy to leave you. So I also submitted these exact same texts. The cutoff may be different in mine. So if that makes any sense, so between the two of them, okay. That would be an accurate record of what's there. Yeah. But nothing else substantive that you can recall. That's correct. Besides what we have here, correct? That's correct. Have you been back to Texas since you were in Houston for the May of 2018 event? No, sir. Byrne says, all right, we'll reserve the rest of our questions for a later stage of the proceedings. Pierce says, could we just take a quick break? Byrne says, sure. Then they're back on the record at 327 media number 1. Who knows what happens after that? They've cut it. They've cut it. So here is the, the rest of this stuff is the attached, let's see, let me shrink this a bit for you, is the attached evidence markers that they were going through. So they've got the Comics Palooza. So it's Comics Palooza. That was someone asked last stream and I couldn't remember what it was called. Comic Palooza in Houston, Texas. They've got the transcript of the question and answer session there that they went through. So here's that. Now they've got the Facebook post that they referenced. Or this one. Yeah, this one's Facebook. Call into Antarctic Press, blah, 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 blah. For a bit. Long post. And then here's the messages between him and Ben Dunn. Here's the messages between him and Ben Dunn. I'm gonna read through these, I think, in just a second. But here's what I need to do. I need to mark Waid it up. I need a bathroom break because I am chugging tea at an absurd rate, and I'm sorry. Give me just a second, guys. I apologize. Hate having to do this, but I gotta go. I'll be right back. All right. Sorry, guys. I think I've gone to the bathroom more times today than I did on that 24-hour stream. Okay, let's go through these real quick. This messages in gray are from Ben Dunn. Thanks for talking to me this afternoon. I've decided to drop the project statement on Facebook coming soon. Waid, you are a very good man. Text or DM me when the statement goes up and I'll recirculate it if you like. It's posted. Good man, thank you, and stay in touch. Do you want me to repost it, or will that create more headaches for you? I'm not sure how to approach it. I'm prepared for the lashing I'm about to get from the other direction. Why don't I give it a day? That way it looks less like I'm just trying to take a victory lap. And sleep on it a couple of nights, but my offer to do an interview is still good. No, Mark, no! Offering to do an interview if he decided to take the project down. That doesn't look good. Doesn't look good, Waid. Sounds good. I appreciate your support. Of course, be well. Look at, this right here, that alone, well, not alone, that in conjunction with his statements to Bleeding Cool, where he said, yeah, so I offered him to do an interview, you know, depending on what path he chose. And then he says, my offer to do an interview is still good after it's dropped. That alone, boom, tortious interference. It's done. It's done. That should be sufficient for tortious interference right there. I'm offering you to publish something of value to promote your brand on my network, my big Marvel network, not Marvel, but my big fueled by Marvel network, with me, the Mark Waid. That's devastating. Sounds good. I appreciate your support. Of course. Be well. Just checking in to see how you're holding up. I went to a small show to get away. I've not gone to Facebook or checked my email since yesterday, so that reduces my stress. Thanks for asking. I wrote a 4-page indictment of the industry last night. I think you will enjoy it when I finish. I had to close my Facebook account after all the non-stop death threats. Would love to read your manifesto. No problem. Also, will you be in Temple Memorial Day weekend? That Houston show? Yeah. My wife's family reunion is in Temple Memorial Day weekend. Holding up. So then we go to the next day, Tuesday. Holding up. Why in the world is Meyer claiming that you called him in tears? Hope you're well. I'm not commenting anymore. Oh no. Oh no. That's the first knife in Julius Caesar's back, right? That's the first one. You know you're done, Mark. I'm not commenting anymore. I don't blame you. You haven't turned on me, I hope. I said that tongue in cheek, but the lack of a reply has me nervous. When can we talk? It's not going according to plan. It's not going according to plan. Ah! I was totally kidding, but I'm not kidding now. I'm not kidding now. Oh my goodness. I do apologize, but essentially I'm trying to put this behind me, and is not to say or do anything that can be misinterpreted or misunderstood. I've instructed everyone, including myself, not to comment on the situation. Whoa, that's not going to go well for Mark, is it? Look at how much longer these texts are getting. Very, very important that he gets some answers. Well, I understand that, and you know that I'm here to help. You're not even getting any blame anymore. The story is that you called in tears to confess that I bullied you. I think that's 100% fiction. You said at the time you didn't feel I was bullying or harassing you in the least, correct? Ben? Left you a VM, not asking for anything but confirmation that you and I are still good with one another still, or if not, what can I do? I'm sorry, this is not Ben. I'm his brother and publisher of Antarctic Press. Again, I'm sorry, but I've avoided being online and taking calls at all for the past 5 days to avoid all of this. This has taken both a mental and physical toll on me and my family. I do not want to say or do anything at this time. I hope you can please respect that. Listen to this. Look at how funny this is. Ben. He's been talking this entire time. Mark Waid, champion of non-racism, confused the two Asian men, right? Confused the two Asian men to the point of putting the wrong phone number in his contacts, apparently, and thinking he was talking to the other one the entire time. Is it because they just look alike, Mark? Oh. So long as you let me know that we're good, because now I'm concerned. If you could just do that, I'm happy to leave you. What have I done to offend you? I do not want to be misconstrued. I do not want to have to use disclaimer words. I do not want any words I use for public consumption. I do not want any misinterpretation. Personally, I can say that we're good in the sense that I'm not angry at anyone but myself. I blame me, myself, and I for everything, and I'm living with that now. And I have to live with myself, and I facilitated more rhetoric. Nobody has offended me. I offended myself. You said I didn't bully you. Do you still feel that way? It weighs on me. Ben, that is all I will ever ask of you, and it stays between us. Do you know that do you now think that I bullied you? It says Ben again. He said Ben again, but the guy said it's not Ben. I've made my decisions based on a variety of many factors to protect me, but mostly to protect my family and employees. I ultimately made the decision. It was 100% my decision. I'll accept the total consequence of that decision. No. No, you don't. No, you don't. Bad Asian. No, the consequence is now on me, not you. I wish you'd been honest with me on Friday. You can hear it. You can hear it. He's gone. He's gone straight from the desperation to the anger, and you know it. Big puffy white man is now going to lean on poor Asian man. And that's what's going on. Look at it. Look at that chest puff. I wish you'd been honest with me on Friday. All of it was an effort to help you. Will you at least give me that? Because everything you're saying to me indicates that you weren't straight with me when you confirmed you didn't feel bullied by me at all and that we were good. Are you changing your story to say that I bullied you, or were you straight with me on Friday? It's all I need to know. Then I'll leave you alone. You better answer, right? You better answer. You better tell me. Then I'll leave you alone. I'll lose your number. You never need to hear from me again. Just tell me I didn't intentionally bully you or hurt you, because if I did, I need to know. Tell me, baby girl, because I need to know, right? Please, I didn't hit you. You just fell down the stairs and landed on the doorknob, right? You just tripped on some shoes, fell down the stairs and landed on the doorknob. I didn't punch you. I need you to say it by text. I did not hit you. I did not punch you. I did not hurt you, right? Right? Then I'll leave you alone. Look, girl, I'm gone. I'm gone right away. As soon as you just go ahead and tell me that it wasn't me, it was you that fell. I didn't do nothing. Just tell me that, and then I'll leave you alone. Never bother you again. There we go. There we go. Well, that is the deposition of one Mark Waid, along with supporting evidence. Let me get some of these chats. Some of these chats here that have come in since the beginning of the stream. We'll go ahead and hit them, and then we will we'll go through some of the other deposition material that's here. Mithran Emra says, man, Waid sounds like an abuser asking for his victim to declare how much they still love him after he was forced to tune him up for his own good, of course, lol. On the same wavelength there, Nick. Yeah, because anybody, I mean, you've seen it. You've seen it. Guys, if you've had a friend who's a female who came out of an abusive relationship, you've seen this exact string of texts, right? Like, you've seen this. I've seen this numbers of times. I've seen this in my work. I've seen these texts. Just go ahead and tell me. Just please, baby, just tell me. I didn't hit you. No, I'll leave. I'll go to Tuscaloosa or whatever. Andrew War Snowboard says Waid is about to be underwater. I think Waid is absolutely underwater. Deleted account says thanks for all the interesting content and streams. You're welcome. Joseph Aldred says for the fancy booze fun. Thank you so much. Rick Rekieta says does it finally mean you're straight? I guess starting 15 minutes early. Absolutely. Absolutely it does. Lil Poo Poo says, did Drex make a tranny snow person over there? Yes. The Killer Critic says, so how much will Waid pay Meyer? Remains to be seen, but damages could be pretty high. Pretty high on this case. Tragic Toast says, hey Nick, I was at KamehaCon today. I met Vic and he was super nice. I really hope everything gets sorted out for him in court. Me too. Keep an eye on Monday. Hashtag me too gets a whole new meaning, I guess. Kraft Lawrence says, so how about the Funimation voice actress Sarah Weidenheft defending her pedo brother? Cops found hard evidence on his aged hard drive as innocent till proven guilty and also being a Kick Vic supporter. It's how it always goes. How it always goes. Everybody, it's so easy to be opposed to everything and opposed to due process until someone you know is in the process, right? Then you want that due process as fast as possible. Kaki Onsai says, is Shane going to be eating shoe tomorrow, please? I mean, Shane probably eats shoe every night, if we're being honest. Rick Rekieta says, Medicare is a heretic. Whoa, strong words. Knight of Hopex says, all these trolls pretending to be right-wingers screaming about Jews in Israel are a big part of why I deleted social media. Keyboard courage of these thugs disgusts me. Human desire to ruin everything for everyone is a blight on all our species. You know what's interesting, though? It would die down if platforms stopped reacting to it. Like, it's true. It would. Cassius says, Dragon Ball announcer voice. Will the internet harpies deplatform the drunk-faced lawyer? Will lawsuits reap justice for Vic? Find out on next episode of Rekieta Law Z. Dragon Ball Z end song. I can't do the song. Mega Vigoroth says, dang, I missed the studio FOW talk. Love their work. Oh, it's up. It's up on my channel. You can go back and rewatch it. Nero Renatus, thank you for the donation. Darking D says, I think the reason a lot of these people don't like what Tim is doing is because he likes to brand himself as this hacker skater bro, but what he's doing is very corporate. Makes him look like a grifter, presenting himself one way, acting another, and such is the nature of being an edgy business person. Kiroku says 90 people, and let's assume some of them got freebies. Well, that's offensive. Ice X says KamehaCon was great today. Vic's line was the same as yesterday. Lots of people, lots of love. Guys, I heard that yesterday may have been the biggest single day Vic has ever done. Hey, conventions. Hey, conventions. You want to bring people to your show? Bring Vic. Brings people. Talbot Link says Ron got reamed. Oduaker says this is strictly a pro-Israel stream. We love Israel. YouTube, Desert Wars, and Alphabet Inc. here. Hashtag never forget the 6 Gorillion. Hashtag foreskins of off for Israel. Okay. David Cook says, my wife and I had the opportunity to meet Vic today. It was an awesome experience, and he was a really loving guy. Hashtag I stand with Vic. Weird. I'm surprised you weren't, horrifically molested. No one important says, seeing Ron's tweets today, I can't even comprehend. I can't follow. I'm super blocked. Mr. Obawan 2020 says, if he already knew the publisher, why did he need to ask colleagues for contact info? Because he's a liar. He's a liar. He either didn't know the publisher, or he either didn't know the publisher, or he clearly got it from the website and should have known they were in Texas. One of those two. John 14 says you should contact Vox Day, Darkstream, legal issues. Vox having legal issues? I've talked to Vox. I haven't talked to him in a while, but I've talked to him several times about his ongoing issues with Indiegogo. So I'm kind of curious what's going on. Now I'm curious. Automata says, it's a real nice industry presence you got there. It'd be a real shame if some hordes of hell happened to it. Yeah, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it? Bamboo Shoots says, dear Lord, I got a headache from this stupidity. Me too, buddy. Chem is Life says, in your opinion, how many answers did Waid hang himself in this one deposition? Almost all of them. They're almost all bad. Caboose Mobile says, randomly wanted to say, since I missed my chance last night, but Ty's theme when he walks in the courtroom should be Obey the Beard by Psycho Stick. Fun fact, Fear the Beard is in the lyrics. Fantastic. Fantastic. Miss Meadowkitty says, Mark is definitely somewhere on the broad spectrum of autism. That was kind of a funny. It's a broad spectrum of white supremacy. No, it really isn't. If you believe that white people are supreme to other races, that's white supremacy. Then you get to, from that point, then you get to argue whether or not that's a good, bad, or neutral, morally neutral position. It doesn't, you know, people are going to come down all over the place on that. But that's what white supremacy is just believing that whites are supreme to others. That's it. It's a very basic definition. There's no broad spectrum of white supremacy. The only argument is how right or wrong it is to be a supremacist. That's it. What does it mean about the person? Grayscale Plaid says, still think that white supremacists shouldn't be liable per se. I didn't necessarily say that it shouldn't be. I said it's not. Did I say it shouldn't be liable per se? I'm real hesitant to make things liable per se. I really am. I really am. But it's, you know, I don't know. How do you prove someone is a white supremacist? And more importantly, how does someone prove they're not a white supremacist? That's the real problem with making it libel per se. But we'll see, I suppose. The DCV Titan says the only thing on the spectrum is Mark Waid. Automata says what we refer to as white supremacy these days, it's a pretty broad spectrum. Wow, just wow. Any chance we could see this one on a patch? Got to talk to, I guess, Believe Boma about that. I think she'd be willing to put it on a patch. Automata says, oh wait, no, I just read that one. Reverend Noun says, thank you for verbally describing Waid figuratively pooping himself. You're welcome. Asia Frazier says, Nick on a Sunday, pass the offering plate. Butthole Weeb says, I once got Nick to say I like wieners in Japanese. I don't see Nick claiming I gave him a death threat or a dick threat. Come on, Meyer and Waid, you guys are soft. Blaine 20 says, sock puppets and distinct voices, please. Rekieta Law Theater. No. Finn Frog says, Mr. Burns, did you wash your hands? Mr. Pierce, object to form. Oh, don't you do that to me. What am I, a Doug? Miss Metakitty says, he's so soyish he managed to offend himself. Automata says, tell me that I'm not bullying you, damn it. Y says that weight Mark feels besides his own is the weight of his sins crawling down his back and the fact he can't weasel his way out of this one. Miss Metakitty says, I did not hit her. It's not true. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark. The DCV Titan says, Mark Waid, no, I did not bully him. I did not. Oh, hey, Zach. Big Red Bear says, this is amazing. I love watching him flailing. Daniel says, that exchange was cringeworthy. Oak 1971 says, the beating shall continue until morale improves. Critical Hit for the win says, check your Twitter DMs. I'm so mad. What? What? Right now? What? I don't know. What is this? I don't know who sent it to me. Because it's, you know, your name on this thing isn't the same always as your name on Twitter. So I don't know. You'll have to, like, let me know that that's what you're talking about. I'll have to check it later. Sorry. Jack Straw says, maybe Zach can get Wade's new comic imprint and become Kwanzaa's boss. That'd be funny. Talbot Link says, is Mark cross-eyed? Seems to lack depth perception on high ground locale. DFW Knight says, us Chinese often use an English name casually and a Chinese name formally, so Ben Could have easily been Yoming's English name. But no, there's two of them. There's two of them. Two guys, right? There's Yoming and Ben. They're two distinct people. KCC says, if you had Waid on the stand, would you ask him why he was asking Ben to confirm his own motivations? No. If I had Waid on the stand, it would be on cross-exam, and I would just tell him what I wanted him to say, and I'd force him to say yes. That's what I would do. Something along the lines of, and you kept hounding him for an answer, didn't you? Well, I wasn't. Answer the question, yes or no. You kept hounding him for an answer, didn't you? Well, yes. Because you really wanted him to say he didn't bully you, right? Or you didn't bully him, right? Yes. Because it was really important for you to say, for you to have him say that you didn't bully him. You know, that sort of thing. Just get him to over and over point out how important it was for Mark Waid to have him say it. Because that's what he was trying to do. Just keep asking him until they object to it. Let's see. KCC. Oh, wait. Night of Hopex. Just a couple, like 3 more chats, and then we're going to jump back into the paperwork. Night of Hopex says the point of doing it is the fact that the platforms never will stop reacting to it. This is accelerationism, just like the guy in New Zealand or straight up sabotage. The platforms want the narrative that we are all are what these people pretend to be. I know. That's why they need to stop. The Kayan Shiba Snijiba, okay, says we need more Greer erotica, Nick. Text sells. I don't know if it does. And Zypher Warrior says kick Vic Mob trying to get Japanese Seiyu VA Aina Kusuda to not go to Anime Matsuri for her safety regarding Vic. Absolutely disgusting behavior. Yes, I'm going to be talking about that more next week. I'll be talking about Anime Matsuri. You know, with the success of Kamehacon, the lawsuits coming up, we're going to be talking about Vic a lot. We're going to be talking about Anime Matsuri. I'm going to Anime Matsuri. Please come see me there. Please come see me there. And the people brigading this, these actors and voice actors, voice actresses, cosplayers, panelists, everybody who's going to Matsuri. Look, the first time I mentioned Anime Matsuri, I got emails. That's how on the ball and organized these people are against Anime Matsuri. Is that just me mentioning it, I got emails the next day, maybe even that night. And then finally, Jan says, wow, this stuff is amazing. Could Waid have pleaded the 5th or something equivalent to not answer a question? Zayd used to pop off on Twitter. Did that stop correspond to this horrible deposition? No. Zayd stopped popping off on Twitter when Zayd was getting absolutely annihilated with every single post that he made in his Twitter metrics, we'll say. He would make a post, he would get pieced up, right? Like whatchamacallit? He would get pieced up like Hulk in the oh my goodness. In the beginning of the Avengers movie when Thanos just lays into Hulk. That was happening to Zayd on every single post that he made. It was embarrassing. I'm not going to take all the, any of the credit for it, but it may have had something to do with the fact that a lawyer from the middle of nowhere, Minnesota, was getting better engagement on his Twitter discussions in the same subject as a high-powered DC lawyer with something like 5 times the subscribers or followers on Twitter. It was really, really a poor showing for him. So there you go. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move along. Where are we? Oh my gosh. Sorry, I ungooded my I ungooded my layout on my screen here. 1031 Pumpkin King says, keep up the good work. Hey, thanks, buddy. I will try. All right. Okay, so now we have Yoming Dunn and Ben Dunn. Okay, This is what I was talking about. Yoming, I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm probably massacring it. And then Ben Dunn. And then we have over here responses to interrogatories. Let's do this. Let's do this real quick. These are some interrogatories that are sent out. So an interrogatory is part of discovery. An interrogatory is a question that you get to ask the other side, and they have to answer it truthfully under oath, right? It's a question under oath. So this is the first set of interrogatories that were sent by Meyer and Mark Waid's objections and responses to those interrogatories. Okay, so this is the service of it. That's boring. Initial objections. So you're going to have a list of standard objections for the interrogatories so that they can't be used in a deceptive way against you. So here you go. Oh, the question of how tall I am. Someone asked how tall I am. I am, whatchamacallit? I'm 6'2". Maybe plus a little bit of change, but 6'2". So, let's see. I like the Spike Man says, yo, Nick, gonna be in central Minnesota this August. If you have a night, I'd love to hit up a casino near Brainerd. Or if you want to come a little north, entertain you and your fam. My sisters have kids your children's age if you want to ski. We'll have to see. We'll have to see, buddy. Email me. We can talk about stuff like that. Okay. So here we go. These are the initial objections. You can make this a bit bigger, right? Good Lord. Why can't we do it? Can't we get a happy ground? There we go. That's a little bit better. Okay. He's saying I'm lying. I mean, there's lots of photos of me from like the road rage shows that Dick Masterson does. You can see me with Ethan Ralph and Andy Worski and stuff like that at Knoxville. Like, me being 6'2" isn't, I'm just not lying about it. Just how tall I am. It's how tall I've been for a long time. Would I want to be taller? Not really, because it gets harder to be in beds. Okay, so here are the initial objections. So you got to have your standard objections for your interrogatory responses. So defendant responds to plaintiff's discovery requests subject to and without waiver of defendant's pending challenge to personal jurisdiction. Defendant has not yet completed either discovery or an investigation of the facts and documents related to this action. Defendant reserves the right to revise, supplement, or clarify his responses to these requests as may be necessary. Eagle Loan. Yeah, I'll meet you at Anime Matsuri, buddy. Just talk to me. These responses are made without in any way waiving any objections as to the relevancy, materiality, or admissibility as evidence for any purpose in this action or any other action. The right to object to the use of these responses in this action or any other action, and the right to elicit appropriate evidence beyond the discovery responses themselves regarding the subjects referred to in or in response to any discovery requests. Defendant responds to these requests as specifically provided in the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. To the extent that plaintiff seeks to impose on the defendant any requirements to answer in any other manner or on behalf of any other persons or entities, defendant objects to the request as being outside the scope of discovery permitted by the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. Defendant further objects to the extent that requests are inconsistent with the court's November 29th, 2018 order. So they're laying out these objections and they say, you know, if they're asking questions that are outside of the scope of the jurisdiction thing, they're going to object. That's it. I don't even have legs. Drexel is 6'7", 6'6", 6'7". Those of you who are confused in the chat. Defendant objects to the extent that any interrogatory seeks information that is protected from discovery by the attorney-client work product or any other privilege. Defendant additionally objects to the extent the interrogatories seek confidential and or proprietary information without entry of an appropriate protective order or confidentiality agreement, which they already have. For example, defendant objects to the extent the interrogatories would require divulging private confidential communications, identifying the person or his or her contact, or identifying information without entry of a protective order or confidentiality agreement, particularly in light of the history of harassment that has occurred in connection with this matter. Sure. Here we go. Here's an interrogatory. Now, depositions, you are limited to the amount of depositions that you're able to get. You can usually depose like for a total number of hours and a total number of depositions. I don't know what the rule specifically is, but it's something like 10 people for 6 hours each, so you get 60 hours of deposition. Typically, you're limited to something like 25 targets for interrogatories and no more than 50 interrogatory questions. So that's how that tends to go. Interrogatory number 1. Identify each instance in which you had traveled to the state of Texas in the last 2 years by stating 1, the date, 2, the length of time for each instance, or the dates and length of time for each instance, 2, the locations within Texas to which you traveled, 3, the purpose of the travel, 4, the persons with whom you interacted, and 5, a description of any presentations, panel discussions, or other public appearances by you while in Texas, including the reason for the appearance and the subject matter addressed. Response. Defendant objects to this interrogatory is overbroad. That's because it says the people, the persons with whom you interacted is overbroad. And outside the permissible scope of the court's order on the basis that it requests regarding interactions, presentations, discussions, and appearances reaches beyond any relationship to Meyer and presents an undue burden, asking him to identify each person with whom the defendant interacted. See, too many people. Subject to and without waiving defendant's initial objections, defendant responds as follows. I visited Texas once in the last 2 years. I flew to Houston on May 23rd, 2018 for a store signing at Bedrock Comics where I interacted with the store owner and a publicist. I also interacted with an estimated 300 fans. On May 24th, 2018, I relaxed in my hotel room and visited with friends for dinner. May 25th to 27th, 2018, I was a guest at the 3-day Comic Palooza convention. I signed at a designated table for a couple of hours each day, interacting with hundreds of fans who wanted autographs. At these signings, the interactions with my fans seeking autographs were brief, mostly just comments like thank you or do you want this personalized? I recall doing 3 panels, a Superman panel on May 25th, a Q&A session on May 26th, and I moderated a panel about writing for various publishers on the same date at 1:30 p.m. Q&A session for the second panel involved a brief discussion on the subject of Comicsgate and the plaintiff, as previously identified in my supplemental declaration. May 27th, I departed Houston. So there you go. We've got him specifically discussing the plaintiff in Houston. That's good stuff. Then interrogatory number 2, identify every communication concerning Waid with any person whom you believe to be or now know to have been a resident of or located in Texas at the time of such communication by state. 1, the date of the communication. 2, the persons involved in the communication. 3, the means of communication, phone, email, in-person conversation, text message, etc. And 4, the substance of the communication. This is way overbroad. Way overbroad. You got to have date restrictions. You got to have limits on what you talked about and stuff like that. They're going to just say this way too much. Defendant objects to the interrogatory as vague and ambiguous in its reference to Waid. Defendant assumes plaintiff meant to state Meyer. Defendant objects to this request to the extent that it seeks information and or materials protected by the attorney-client privilege and attorney work product doctrine, including any communications with Texas Litigation Counsel, communications with whom are protected by the attorney-client privilege and work product doctrine. Defendant also objects to the extent that the interrogatory seeks disclosure of confidential private communications. They're not confidential, by the way. They would lose that part of the objection. And personal identifying information, which would be provided only under redactions or with entry of an agreeable protective order or confidentiality order. Defendant further objects. So when did they send this in? Oh, this was served on January 15th. So this was served prior to the confidentiality and protective order that came out in this case. So that's why that's in there. They just really wanted to include this answer in their stuff. So this is the reason for that. They just want to have it established in the interrogatory response that he traveled to Houston and talked about Meyer. That's it. Okay. So how many pages? 21 pages. Hold on, I'm just checking how long this thing is. Whoa. Okay. So 10 pages of deposition and then 11 pages of evidence. Here we've got, this one's only 9 pages. Just a couple. Let's do this one first. And we'll see how we're doing after a couple pages. Sorry for scrolling through like that. But we've got a, oh man. Again. There. So this is the deposition of Dunn. Dunn. That's a good question. Red Rat Crawford says, can an interrogatory be asked in a 2-part question format, or is it just one straightforward question? Oh, no. Interrogatory can be one question with like 25 parts. Yeah, as long as the parts are all related to that question, you can certainly get very, very specific with it. All right, let's read this deposition of Dunn. So we've got the witness is Dunn, plaintiff is Daniel Byrne, defendant is Ryan Pierce, and Otto Good, must be local Texas counsel. Not sure why they have Mr. Otto Good there. Not related to Zaid's firm, not related to their other firm, Reeves Brightwell. But we'll see. Oh, he's there because he's in San Antonio. That's why. This is Dunn's attorney, is Mr. Otto S. Good. I apologize for not reading through that a little bit better. So Dunn's attorney, Wade's attorney, Pierce, and Daniel Byrne is there for Meyer. And then examination, what do we got? Meyer is present, Waid is there by phone, and Zaid is there by phone. Okay. Oh, we got a message from Tug on here. Great. We'll have to say hey there when we get there. All right. So here's the on the record stuff. I'm going to skip that. Byrne. Now, Byrne is asking questions for Dunn. Now, you're probably going to notice a different approach that Byrne is taking to Dunn than he took with Waid. Likely going to be less hostile. Probably going to be friendly or cordial. He wants Dunn on his side. But, you know, at any time he could kind of flip a switch and drop a very, you know, piercing question if he needs an answer. But likely he's going to try to make friends with Dunn. Okay? So that's something to watch for here. So, Pierce is going to ask, wait. So Byrne says, would you state your name for the record? Dunn. Pierce says, Dan, talking to Byrne, do you want to cover the preliminary things we talked about? Byrne says, go ahead. So now Pierce is going to take some deposition time on Dunn. And if you're wondering why Pierce and Byrne have a very informal sort of relationship, they talk to each other on a first name basis. One is because they're probably talking behind the scenes, and two, their offices are literally in the same building, just one floor above the other. So these guys have probably had lots of communications unrelated to this case as well. Here says, plaintiff's counsel and defendant's counsel have agreed that objection to form will be sufficient to preserve objections relating to form-related objections, and that the parties will have a running objection to questions that go beyond the court's order regarding jurisdictional discovery. Byrne says, and scope just generally, yes, okay, those are agreed, blah, blah, blah. Answer, Don't know the question, but the answer is yes, sir. Oh, probably. Here's his address. They've redacted his address because he's not a party to the suit. How long have you lived there? I've lived there since February of the year before, 2017. Okay, what is your connection to Antarctic Press? I was the founder of the company. I currently freelance with the company, and I'm the brother of the owner. What? Tell me about the founding of Antarctic Press. When was it founded? It was founded in 1985 sometime. I think it was in the fall. I'm not quite sure. And we started sunsetting our first book in that year, which was magazine number 1. Mangazine. Magazine number 1. Yes, sir. Was your first book? Yep. Okay. Have you ever been deposed before? What does that mean exactly? No. The answer is no. Have you ever been in a situation like this where you have a lawyer answer asking your questions under oath? Yes. Oh. Okay, I guess he just didn't know it's a deposition. How many times? Once. Okay. Well, you understand this. You're obligated to tell the truth the same as you would if you're live in court in front of a judge. Yes, sir. And the only trick I guess I'd say is I have a tendency to slow down toward the end of my questions before I finish them. So, sure. Try not to jump in and the court reporter will have an easier job. Yes, sir. Very funny, Dan. It's a nice way to ease his way into the relationship. So you've been in the comics industry for, I'm going to do the math here, 35 years or so. Yes, sir. And when you founded Antarctic Press, was your brother always involved? No. What's your brother's name? Joe Dunn? Okay. Does he go by Joe sometimes? Yes, that's his shortened name. His nickname? Yes, sir. And when did Joe become involved with Antarctic Press? He became involved in 1989. And prior to that, did you own the company? Yes. And did you sell it to your brother in 1989? No. He was my financial advisor. He helped run the company by doing various things and just generally mostly moral support and advisor. Okay, how long did you maintain your ownership in the company? Until about 2001. Were you the sole owner until 2001? Yes, it was a coincidence. Were you privy to any communication once this announcement was made that were angry or threatening toward Antarctic Press? Oh, wait, here we go. Notice what happened there. Sorry. That was page 8 skips to page 17. So again, they cut out the background info. Sorry for not catching that right away. So there's an answer. Yes, it was coincidence. Now we get on to the questions that Byrne cares about. Were you privy to any communications once this announcement was made that were angry or threatening towards Antarctic Press? No, I was not. Objection form. Oh, I'm sorry. It's okay. No, you can answer. No, I was not privy to any communications. My brother would not show me anything. Byrne says, okay. Prior to the phone call in question, which we'll get to in a minute, what do you remember about conversations you had with your brother or with other people at Antarctic Press about the decision to publish Jawbreakers? All right. Well, prior to the phone call, he started getting emails and posts once the announcement was made that seemed very hostile toward the announcement. And someone had either forwarded to him or told him that there was either a Facebook post of a bunch of retailers who were deciding they weren't going to carry the book because of their animosity toward the creator of Jawbreakers. So at first, we did not take this seriously because it didn't occur to us that this was something that would needed to be taken, seriously. And because in the 30 years we've been in business, we've never encountered anything of this magnitude before. This gives you an idea what these people were going through just for the audacity of publishing a book by Richard Meyer. Was there any discussion that you had with your brother or the other Antarctic Press folks about whether this would be a good thing for the company? Well, object form. Let me rephrase. Okay. Was there any discussion that you had your brother or others at Antarctic Press about whether the publication of Jawbreakers would be a good thing for the company? Object form. I was aware of the Kickstarter. I mean, not the Kickstarter, Indiegogo campaign, and I was following it, so I knew it was doing quite well. So I, in my mind, translated that it would do very well for AP as well, which is a reasonable assumption, let me just say. And Joe, thought the same thing. But once he started getting hostile retaliation, since the announcement, he began to tell me that he had never experienced such vitriol before, on any book that, we've done controversial books in the past and we've had our share of detractors, but this was nothing we'd ever, or at least I've never experienced before. So I can only say what my brother must have experienced, since he didn't want to show me the things was getting. But he told me it was not nice. It was not very nice. That's one way to put it, right? All right. And on May 11th of 2018, which is the day of the phone call? Yes. Were you in the Antarctic Press offices? No, we were at my brother's residence. Okay, and were you there with your brother? I was there with my brother, but not in the same room as the phone call. Okay. I was in the next room. Okay, were you there when the phone call came in? I was there when the phone call came in. And was the phone call, well, let me ask you this. Was the phone call, do you remember the sequence of events? Let me withdraw that question. Do you remember the sequence of events leading up to the phone call? For example, do you remember whether there was a call made to the Antarctic Press offices, or whether who initiated this communication is what I'm trying to find out. Very, very awkward question here. I'm not aware of any prior communication. I do know that I was in my brother's residence in the main living room when he got a phone call on his, I believe it was his cell phone, and he said he had to take it because it was from Mark Waid. And do you know whether he dialed out to return a message from Mr. Waid, or whether the call was incoming? I don't know. I believe he got it, and he said he had to take it, so he went to another room and he closed the door. And either he continued the phone call on his cell phone, or he transferred to I'm not sure. Prior to that call, whether it was initiated, whomever it was initiated by, was it your understanding as to whether Antarctic Press was still planning to publish Jawbreakers at the time? Pierce is getting lazy here. Yeah, as far as I knew, as far as I knew, nothing had changed. Even up to that phone call, there was no reason for me to believe otherwise. Back to Byrne. Okay, so you were not privy to either side of the conversation that took place between your brother and Mr. Waid, correct? No, but had I known, I probably would have ingratiated myself. But I thought it was just another business call. Okay, did you hear any muffled sounds or any tone of the conversation that was taking place in the other room? No, I didn't hear anything. Okay, and what? He says okay too much. That's my criticism. And what happened next after the call was, after the call was over, I could tell my brother was visibly upset. I wouldn't say he was shaking or anything, but I could tell that whatever transpired was not something positive, because otherwise he would have told me immediately what the phone call was about and what it pertained to. But he didn't say anything about the phone call to me at all. So that evening, he didn't share anything about the phone call. Well, later on, no. He didn't share anything about the phone call immediately afterwards, okay? And then later, maybe an hour or two, he said he had to reconsider publishing the book and Jawbreakers. And I asked him, well, why? Why would you want to do that? He says, well, I believe he told me that he could not bear the overwhelming negative responses he was getting at the time. And I basically just told him, you're the boss of the company. You have to make that decision. I'm against it, but you have to make the final choice because it's your company. Okay, and did you have any more conversations that day about this decision? No, he refused to talk about it, so I didn't bring it up. Okay, and do you recall when the decision was announced about not following through on publication? I had learned of the announcement the same as everybody else on the day that AP made the official announcement that they had to cancel the book. And do you know whether it was the same day or another day? I believe it was the next. It was either later that day or the next day. I can't recollect exactly the time. Okay, I'm just going to ask you to glance quickly through Exhibit 7 to the depositions in this case. Pierce, do you have an extra copy? Yeah, I do. My apologies. And I'll just give you this. I really want you to confirm that even though that has been at the top, that this is not, whether this is a conversation with you or your brother, a text conversation. Mr. Pierce says, Dan, I think I have a copy. I don't remember this, but it's possible I did this. Here it is. Thank you very much. That's between Byrne and Pierce. Here it is. Then thank you very much. Answer. This is back to Ben. Okay, what did you need to know about that one? Byrne says, well, I'll just say this. Does this look familiar to you? It does somewhat, yes. Does your wife's family have a family reunion in Temple on Memorial Day in 2018? Yes. That's your wife? Not my wife, my brother's wife. Okay. And you didn't have any conversations with Mark Waid on May 11th? No, did not have any conversations with him. After the decision was announced by Antarctic Press to discontinue the publication of Jawbreakers, what's the next substantive interaction you recall having with your brother or anybody else at Atlantic Press, means Antarctic, concerning Jawbreakers or the Jawbreakers decision? Not much, really. I told him I would support whatever decision he would make. Of course, you know, he's my brother. So I wanted to make sure that I had his back, you know, as far as whatever decision he made. I didn't want him to think that this decision was an error in any way because, you know, he knew the consequences of it and yada, yada, yada. That's all we get out of this transcript. Not really the super useful deposition, except for establishing that it had him rattled, right? That's the point of this. This guy was shaken. His brother could tell, and his brother was under the understanding that they were going to publish the book. And then his brother gets a phone call and is shaken afterwards. And then, of course, that they made he makes the decision afterwards to cancel the book. All right, so here are the exhibits. This is No Enemy But Peace. Exhibit 10. This is by Rich Johnston on Bleeding Cool. He's got some highlights here. Meyer's latest crowdfunded comic project was on Indiegogo. Jawbreakers is a military superhero comic to be drawn by well-known comic artist John Malin with covers. That's it. That's all we get out of that. Antarctic Press. Comics and Chill. Facts. Mark Waid put a call into our office. Staff took a message and told Mr. Waid our publisher would be informed. Nobody at AB contacted CB Cebulski or Marvel, nor felt threatened in any way by Mr. Waid's call. We have not been bullied into a decision by any comics pro. As for the allegations of intimidation, threats, and coercion, I asked Waid what happened. He told me, oh, so this is part of that No Enemy But Peace article. I don't want to read all this. This is a lot. I've read this before. And then in light of the cancellation, Richard posted, please don't send any negative messages or energy towards Antarctic Press. They did what they had to do after enduring a vicious wave of bullying from SJW comic book pros that was led by Mark Waid. Then, here's just one more thing. Big Bang Comics saying they're choosing not to stock Jawbreakers. There you go. That's the only exhibit here. Not super interesting, not super beneficial, but letting them know that there was publications for people to follow with information about the case. All right, here's Joe Dunn. Joe Dunn. We'll get this to one. Over a bit. Okay. This is an ASMR sleeping video. No, but depositions can be very boring. The question is where the interesting stuff comes. And I think Joe Dunn is the guy who was on the phone with Mark, so we may get some interesting stuff here. Okay, so we've got Byrne and Pierce again. Auto good for Joe. Joe Dunn is the witness. And we've got Meyer present, Waid and Zaid via telephone. Here's all the exhibits. There's a whole bunch of exhibits. We're not going to go through all of them. Or we're not going to go through the table of contents here. But let's get right into this examination. Get right into this examination. Byrne, Just state your name for the record. My full name is Joe Ming Wolf Dunn, D-U-N-N. And do you go by Joe Dunn? I go by Joe or Joe Ming, depending on who my friends are, I guess. Okay, Mr. Dunn, my name is Dan Byrne, and I'm representing Richard Meyer in a lawsuit that I think you're aware of that's been brought against Mark Waid. I'm sitting here with Mr. Meyer to my right, and Mr. Waid's counsel, Ryan Pierce, is sitting across the table. All right? Yes, sir. And you and I haven't met or talked before today, correct? No, sir. I mean, the answer he means is yes. Okay, we learned a little bit about your business, Antarctic Press, this morning in the deposition of your brother, Ben, but I'm going to go over that just a little bit, just to make sure that you and he are in agreement. And Dan, sorry, same agreements on objections? Yes. Sorry, go ahead. How long have you been affiliated with Antarctic Press? Since 1989. Around that time. Zach Fuchs. This is not part of the deposition, guys. Zach Fuchs, this is about the Richard Meyer lawsuit against Mark Waid. This is the deposition of the CEO of Antarctic Press, the guy that Mark Waid bullied into dropping the comic. So this one should be pretty interesting. Since 1989, around that time, is that when you bought it from your brother? No, sir. Okay, tell me what happened in 89. My brother had a partner named Mark Ripley, and they started Antarctic Press in 85, end of 84. And Mark was supposed to be the financial supporter. What happened was Mark kind of stopped doing work for the company, and so my brother needed somebody to help with the finances and, you know, paying the bills. And I was apt to do that. So I helped him at that point in time. Now we skip from page 8 to page 17. Question, what does Joe White do? He's a freelance creator. And what does Austin Rogers do? Austin is he used to or still does. Runs a publishing company called Guardian Knights. And they're also here based in San Antonio. And recently their editor-in-chief left and he took over. And we were trying to do some collaborations together. And so his company kind of attached to our company. So at the time you were deciding to publish Jawbreakers, you were exploring collaboration opportunities with Guardian Knights. Correct. Who is the editor-in-chief for Antarctic Press back in the spring of 2018? Jockin Welchins. And does he have a nickname that he goes by? He goes by Joey sometimes. Okay, I've seen references to Joey and yes, and I'm wondering, his full name is Jockin Welchins, but we call him Joey and Joe. We have a lot of Joes at Antarctic Press. Well, at least you can distinguish between Joe and Joey when you're using nicknames, right? That's correct. And do you recall about when you made the decision to publish Mr. Meyer's book, Jawbreakers? Oh, I can't recall. Okay, exact date, no. We'll get some exhibits in a minute that might help you pin that down. Right. Has Antarctic Press always been based in San Antonio, Texas? Yes, sir. Have you lived in San Antonio throughout the period when you graduated from medical school and today? No, I did my residency in Dallas for 3 years. Okay, and when did you move back to San Antonio? 1995. So you've been in San Antonio continuously since 95, correct? Yes, sir. And does Antarctic Press have an office presence here, a physical presence? A physical office? Yes. Where is that located? Currently, the address is 4700 Timco West, suite number 100, San Antonio, Texas, 78238. And has that been its place of business throughout 2018 and 2019? Yes. Do you maintain an internet website for Antarctic Press? Yes. And does that website show the physical location of Antarctic Press as best you know? I think so, yes. You mentioned that you're not much of a person for being on the internet or using social media. Did I hear that correctly? Correct. Do you recall having any email exchanges with either Richard Meyer or Mark Waid prior to the phone conversation you recall having with Mr. Waid in May of 2018? No. How about any communications via Twitter or Facebook or other social media? Not me personally. That's interesting because he says prior to Wade's phone conversation, he hasn't even talked to Meyer by email or Twitter or Facebook personally. So that's weird. Okay, were you aware of any Twitter or Facebook communications concerning Mr. Meyer or Mr. Waid prior to your conversation with Mr. Waid? I'm aware of Brian communicating with Mr. Meyer via Twitter sometimes, but me directly, no. And is that something you know secondhand because you were told about it by Brian? Yes, correct. Back to the meeting where the decision was made to publish Jawbreakers. Was there any discussion about whether Jawbreakers would be a particularly good seller for Antarctic Press? Object to form. At the time when we discussed Jawbreakers, Brian had mentioned that Meyer had a large number of followers on YouTube, and I was thinking that because he had a large number of followers, it was possible that he could translate that to some sales. Byrne says, was the group that was discussing the decision to publish excited about the prospects for successful sales from this decision? Object to form. I believe it was I didn't think it was any more unusual than any other submission. Okay, does Antarctic Press have a sort of philosophy about a willingness to publish potentially controversial work? Object to form. Our philosophy is to support creators, and so if we like it, we, publish it. Okay, do you have a policy or philosophy about distinguishing between creators and their creators' work? Object to form. No. Okay, I think we're going to need some more. Deposition Exhibit 11 marked. Let me hand you what's been marked as Deposition Exhibit number 11. This is an email string that looks like it is all dated between March 12th, 2018. Is this the Brian Denham in this string, the Brian Denham that you testified is an independent contractor associated with Antarctic Press? Correct. Okay. Does this refresh your recollection about the timing of Antarctic's decision to publish Mr. Meyer's Jawbreaker comic? It says March 12th, 2018, and that sounds about right. Okay, now at this point, had the decision been made to go ahead and publish, or did that actual decision get made at a later date? Do you know? Whenever Brian or one of my editors makes a suggestion for a book, and they think that it's viable, then I usually do not put it much barriers for publication. He doesn't answer the question there. Okay, so as best you can recall, the decision to proceed with publishing was a go as of March 12th of 2018. Is that fair? Objection to form. Yes. There you go. We have now established decision to proceed March 12th. You basically have a contract at that point. Mr. Dunn, I'm handing you what's been marked as Deposition Exhibit 12. Is this another email exchange in April of 2018 involving Brian Denham concerning the Jawbreaker publication by Antarctic Press? Okay. I need you to say yes or no. Is that what it is? This is an email between Brian and Timothy Lim in regards to suggestion from Mr. Meyer's Kickstarter. What is your understanding of Kickstarter and how it works in the comic business, just generally? Well, Kickstarter, in my opinion, it was a platform to help kickstart projects, just like the namesake, and it is used to generate funds to help whatever project a person has. In the comic book industry, it has become a way to finance a lot of projects that people want to publish. So I don't know. It has changed a little bit of that in that regard, but in my opinion, Kickstarter is meant what it was supposed to be, a kickstart. Isn't there another platform that also used for raising money for comic book projects? Yes, the other main one is a platform called Indiegogo, I think. Okay. Do you know whether Mr. Meyer's book Jawbreaker was being launched through either of those platforms? I recall that. I think it was launched through Indiegogo. Okay, do the two platforms work in similar ways? I think there are some differences in how they receive the money, but I think in essence, yes. Okay, and is it typical, ordinary course of business for Antarctic's editors, like Mr. Denham, to offer tips about how to manage projects as set forth in this email? We have had experience with Kickstarter, and so we have some suggestions always for creators that may want to launch some projects through Kickstarter. And so these look like some of the suggestions that we make to creators. So this is a normal type of communication. Yes, that you offer your contributors. Yes. And I gather this is the kind of communication that you would normally expect to see a few weeks after a decision is made to go ahead with publishing, or is that not the case? Objection to form. So Pierce here is trying to object any question that looks like it establishes that a contract exists. It's one of the elements of tortious interference is that there has to be a contract and the other party has to know about it. So he's trying to establish that. Can you restate that question again, please? Is the normal sequence, once a decision is made, to within a few weeks offer tips like those set forth in Deposition Exhibit 12 to your contributors? Object to form. If a creator asks us for Kickstarter or Indiegogo tips, we do offer it to them. Exhibit 13 is marked. Let me hand you what's been marked as Deposition Exhibit 13, which is another email exchange involving Brian Denham concerning the Jawbreakers publication. Have you seen this before? I have not seen this email exchange. Okay, so when Mr. Denham says on Sunday, April 29th, 2018, in his email that it is a firm yes that will publish Jawbreakers, is that an accurate statement of Antarctic Press's position as of that date? Object to form. Yes. It is a firm yes that will publish Jawbreakers. Is that an accurate statement of AP's position as of that date? Yes. That's devastating. Sorry, my nose is itching. I need to call the Coke Monster. Exhibit 14 is marked. I've handed you what's been marked as Exhibit 14, which is another series of emails involving Mr. Denham dated May 2nd, 2018. Do you recall seeing this back prior to today? No. Okay. Do the exchanges here between Denham, Mr. Meyer, Diversity in Comics, and Mr. Harris, are they typical, ordinary course of business types of exchanges that you see in your business when moving toward publication of a comic book? Object to form. Yes. So as of May 2nd, 2018, was it still the position of Antarctic Press that it would proceed with publishing the Jawbreakers comic? Correct. Now, why didn't Pierce object to the form there? Why didn't he object there? I don't know. Because that's an unobjected question, and it's correct. That's a good one. Good win by Byrne on this one. Okay, I hand you what was previously marked as Deposition Exhibit number 8. Is that posting that was Is that a posting that was authorized by you to formally announce the decision to publish Mr. Meyer's comic Jawbreakers? Answer. Brian is in charge of our Twitter account, and he doesn't clear things with me before he posts on Twitter, but yeah, I mean, I typically trust him on posting what we talk about in the meetings. Okay, do you sometimes give specific instructions about what will and what will not be said on behalf of Antarctic Press? Typically, no. However, in some circumstances, when the need arises, we discuss what needs to be posted. And you ultimately control what gets said when you choose to exercise that control. Is that fair? Object to form. Correct. Oh, correct. Poor guy doesn't understand that he still has to answer the question even when it's objected. Did you have any problem with this announcement decision made by Brian as reflected in Exhibit 8? No. Okay, prior to, and I believe that's May 8th, May 9th. May 9th. So prior to May 9th of 2018, had you become aware of any negativity or controversy surrounding either Mr. Meyer or the decision by Antarctic Press to publish his comic book? No. When did you first become aware of any such negativity, if you can recall? The first time I remember, I don't remember the exact date, but shortly after the announcement, there was something that came up with a Facebook group which were made by a bunch of comic retailers. And this was a group of retailers that was organizing a boycott of sorts. My understanding was it was a group of retail comic book retailers that were going to boycott Antarctic Press. Okay, when you heard about that, did you decide immediately to reverse your decision to publish Jawbreakers? Object to form. No. I hand you what's been marked as Deposition Exhibit 15. Have you seen this email string before today? No. Did you have internal discussions with your team, your staff, about the boycott threat? Yes. And why did that boycott threat not prompt you to immediately reverse your decision? As in most things I do in making decisions, I like to get all the information possible. Okay. In Exhibit 15, there's a line from Mr. Denham dated May 9th where he says, "That just shows me we're doing the right thing, standing with you." Do you see that? The very top paragraph. Okay. Did you at the time share that sentiment expressed by Mr. Dunham? Objection to form. I can't speak for what Brian was thinking at the time when he spoke about that. I was asking whether you also thought that your company was doing the right thing by standing with Mr. Meyer. I think objection to form. At the time, very, very important. I think at the time I believe that we believed that publishing was the right thing to do. So is your company at that time pressing on with the process of preparing the comic for eventual publication? I think at the time when I first heard of the Facebook group that I wanted to gather everybody and get information about this project. I hand you what's been marked as Exhibit 16 to your deposition. It looks like an exchange between Mr. Meyer and Mr. Denham later in the morning of May 9th, which suggests that the process of preparing the book for publication continued. Is that a fair interpretation of this exchange? Yes. Hey, Pierce says, hey, Dan, when you get to a good place, can we take a bathroom break? No rush. Just, I guess this is as good a time as any. Let's go off record. So they go off record and back. Mr. Dunn, earlier, I think you testified that you attended various comic-related conventions over the years. Notice that bathroom break, interestingly, broke the flow, it looks like. Because I don't know that this follows logically from that. But there we go. Attended various comic-related conventions over the years. Yes. How many on average per year have you typically attended? Say over the last 5 or 10 years. Over the last 5 or 10 years, as me personally attended, probably around 3 a year. Okay. Are they typically located in Texas or at various locations around the country? The ones I've attended are in Texas. And had you ever seen Mr. Waid, Mark Waid, present at any of those conventions? No. Didn't Mark Waid say specifically that he had met this guy, knew him, good guy, knew him from conventions? Where did you ever attend any conventions where he was in attendance, to your knowledge? I'm sure I've attended some conventions that he was in attendance. Okay, does Antarctic Press do something to create a presence at these conventions? Does it have a booth or do any advertising? Yes. What is the normal activity that Antarctic Press takes at the comic conventions you're familiar with? We usually set up as a booth. Okay, and how would attendees at conventions come to know what would they learn about Antarctic Press in the course of seeing a booth for you? Object to form. Typically at a booth that we attend, let me rephrase that question. What is it that you attempt to convey about your company by setting up a booth to the people attending these conventions? Typically, when we set up at conventions, we try to reach the audience that attends the conventions that may be comic book fans in hopes of obtaining new fans. New customers, yes. And what is it that you convey about yourself in order to attempt to create new customers? Now, here's what's going on with Dan Byrne. Notice what he's trying to get to. He couldn't get this guy to definitely say that they support, creators versus their creation, stuff like that. He's trying to get there in a roundabout way. Starting to get hints here. We typically sell the books that we publish during that period of time, and if possible, to have creators attend our booth to meet with the fans and potential customers. Do you convey that you're a Texas-based publisher in the course of these promotions? Object to form. Typically not. Okay, do you have a sign up that identifies you as based in San Antonio? No. Do you believe that folks know where you proceed with publication of Jawbreakers? Object to form. I believe my recollection of the time right before I talked to Mr. Waid, I was being inundated with information and I was, trying to organize all my thoughts in my head. I don't think a final decision had been made. But there was, wait, what? Oh, we skipped 5 pages. These kind of followed. So we've got some question about proceeding with publication of Jawbreakers. So let's see. I believe my recollection of the time right before I talked to Mr. Waid, I was being inundated with information and I was, trying to organize all my thoughts in my head. And so I don't think a final decision had been made, but there was quite a few things in my head at that point in time. Byrne says, let me hand you what I've marked as Exhibit 18 to your deposition. And I think Mr. Dunn, it kind of starts chronologically at the end of the day and works its way up. Okay. Is this a series of internal email exchanges between you and other members of Antarctic Press team occurring between May 9th and May 11th of 2018? Correct. And is Doug Dlin's? It's D-L-I-N, right? Correct. Is Doug Dlynn's email address on that APCOG1? That's correct. Okay, and just to identify the participants in these exchanges, Imzajja refers to who? Joey Welchins, Jokin Welchins. Okay, and is Brian Denham cleverly named Brian Denham at Gmail? Correct. Lawyer jokes, not ever good. Not ever good. And who is Twilight Texas Mail? That is Joe White. And David Hutchinson uses his real name at Yahoo, correct? Correct. All right. Starting on May 9th, at the very end of this string, who raises the question about thoughts on a response? Who is AppCog again? I think it was at the time, that was Doug, right? Correct. And then on the third page in, you have Brian Denham responding to Doug's inquiry about ignoring the response. Do you see that? Correct. I see that on May 9th. Okay, and was Brian at the time telling you that you had generated a lot of fans on Twitter by your announcement? I believe it's towards the bottom of the third page. I believe at the time when, after the announcement, there was we started getting the response to the announcement, and the response to the announcement came very fast. And a lot of things came in at the same time. And then I believe Doug received, a multitude of calls and at the office in regards to it. And so I think he was curious to know how to respond. And that's when I started getting more involved, I guess, on that aspect of it. And did you agree initially with Brian's advice that the inquiry should be ignored? Object to form. I believe that was discussed with Brian, and I think that I agreed with that, not to respond. Did you learn that there was both negative and positive social media activity concerning your decision? Yes. Yes. Okay. Were you trying to evaluate whether the negative outweighed the positive? Object to form. I think I was at the time. I was thinking what transpired to create such a passionate response on both sides of the equation, and I wanted to get information about all that. Okay. On the first page of Exhibit 18, there's an entry there coming from Jay Dunn at Antarctic Press. That's you, correct? Correct. And so on Thursday evening at 9:48 p.m., told your team about responding to inquiries and emails. I think at that point in time, I was surprised about the response on both sides of the equation, and to keep, I believe that I decided to say not to respond to anything. And the reasoning behind that was to not fuel any fires. And I believe that if we had said, anything that could be said could be misconstrued. So I decided, let's not say anything. So there's no miscommunication because of the fact that how things sometimes at the internet, so I think that's the reasoning behind it. That's a weird answer, man. He didn't say anything there at all. Question. Dan gets him back on track. Did you use the term radio silence? Correct. Okay. You told your team to be radio silent in either direction on this? Correct. Object to form. All right. Page 41. So during the following day, Friday the 11th, did you continue to gather information or did you tune out? Among the people that, that were closest to me and I think at the time my brother came to visit, was still gathering information, and I had gotten some information that, I wanted clarified and I wanted to. And from that perspective, I think that I removed myself from any social media or internet because I knew how things were. People were responding according to other people. And so then at this point in time, I just still gathered my thoughts about this whole situation. Okay. At that time, did you understand that you had made a commitment to Mr. Meyer to publish his comic? Object to form. Yes. Yes, he did. Ooh. I hand you what's been marked as Exhibit 19 to your deposition. This is an email string that starts with something to you from Joey at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday, May 11th, to which you respond at 4:38 p.m. on Friday, May 11th. Correct. Do you see that? Yes, sir. You got to get the witness to authenticate what you're handing to them. You can't just say, this is what it is. You got to take my word for it. They have to understand it. And this is just you responding directly to Joey, correct? Correct. There's some aspects of your lengthy email here that seem to be infused with some emotion. Correct. Were you feeling that emotion towards Joey or towards the situation or both? I think my emotion was mostly towards the situation. And it's fair to say that Joey was expressing discomfort with continuing with your decision to proceed with Jawbreaker's publication. I think that at the time, yes, because of the information we had gathered. And you start out by making reference to the Kobayashi Maru of comic books, no-win situation. What is that a reference to? There's a movie, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Nerd. And in that movie, the Kobayashi Maru is an introduction. It was introduced at the time with basically, it was a test for, if you're familiar with Star Trek, it's a test for the Starfleet cadets that they were put in a no-win situation. But one student that was able to beat the Kobayashi Maru, which was Captain Kirk. And so I felt like this was a no-win situation for our company. Did you have the Captain Kirk solution fashioned yet? Objection to form. No. You make reference to social media pressure. Was that social media pressure coming in both directions? Object to form. Yes. Now, in the second paragraph, you make a reference to, I'm going to rant, not to each of you personally, but to everyone who has put us in this situation. Was this being circulated beyond just Joey? No, it was just between me and Joey. Obviously, you use a lot of powerful language here, Mr. Dunn, and I don't need to go through it with you line by line. By the end of this email, are you still, at least at this point, standing by your decision to proceed with the publication? Object to form. I think by the end of this rant that I did in this email, I had felt that my emotional status had been drained, and I felt like I didn't want to continue down that pathway. Mr. Waid says yes. Byrne says, let's go off record. Let me tell you what happened here. Mr. Waid says yes. Let's go off record. Record goes off. Counsel, you control your client and you tell him to shut up immediately. This is not his deposition. This is my deposition of Mr. Dunn. If your client cannot keep his stupid mouth shut, we will object. We will file for sanctions for contaminating the deposition. Can your client control himself, or do we need to remove him from this deposition? No. We'll get our client. Waid, you got to shut your mouth. You fat pimple. You stupid, ugly marshmallow man. Shut your stupid mouth. Okay? That's what happened there. Back on the record, Mr. Byrne. Very happy and composed again. Mr. Dunn, before we went on break, 10 minutes, guys. 10 minutes. He reamed that guy out for 10 minutes. Before we went on break, we were talking about Exhibit 19, which is the email you sent at 4:38 p.m. on Friday, May 11th last year. Put this email in context. Was this email written after you had received the message that Mr. Waid wanted you to call him back? I think so. But it was written before you actually spoke to Mr. Waid. I think so. And what was the reaction around your office when Mr. Waid left his message that you recall? At the time, Mr. Waid called the office. The most of the people that work or do work for me do not work at the office. And so I think that at the time, Doug was the only one at the office. And he just relayed the message to all of us at that time. Because Mr. Waid is kind of a big deal in the comics industry, isn't he? Object to form. I believe so. You recognized his name when that message was left, right? Yes. And reading this email, you make some comments in what you call your rant about distinguishing between the art and the artist. Correct. Is that something that Antarctic Press tried to do in making its publication decisions? Correct. There's a reference in here to the credo of the company being somehow related to the creator of rights. Correct. Is that we believe in the original creation of Antarctic Press was for creator rights, to have opportunity for creators to publish their books, maintain their rights to their book with no strings attached. Was that a factor that weighed in favor of your decision to publish Jawbreakers? Object to form initially. Answer. I believe that the reason for Jawbreakers, at least in my mind, was that he had a following. And that was because his following translated into potential positive financial outcome for Antarctic Press. Correct? Correct. Was another factor in the decision the company's history of supporting creator rights. Objection to form. Correct. These are good. These are good questions and good answers for them. You knew that when you returned Mr. Wade's call, he was going to be on the side of trying to dissuade you from publishing Jawbreakers. Correct? Object to form. Yes. Did you know before you returned Mr. Wade's call that he would be opposed to Antarctic Press proceeding with the publication? Object to form. I was aware that he was opposed to Jawbreakers. And even before you talked to Mr. Waid, you were aware of the pressure from some segments of the industry to try to persuade you on behalf of Antarctic Press to change your publication decision. Correct? Object to form. Correct. In the last paragraph of your email, you say a couple times, even if we decide to publish the book, and then a few lines later you say, if we publish the book, would it be fair to say that you were still considering possibly proceeding with publication at the time you wrote those words? Objection to form. I believe what I was thinking was, Burns stops him. Let me come at it. Let me ask you a different question. Here's the question I would have asked. Before Byrne asks, and I haven't read ahead. Before Byrne asks, I would have asked, had you communicated to Meyer or anyone else your decision not to publish this book? No, I would have actually just said to Meyer, had you communicated at the time before the phone call your decision to Meyer not to publish his book? And if that answer is no, that's devastating. That's how I would have asked it. Did the information you gathered and the pressure you were getting from certain segments of the industry via social media prompt you to consider reversing your decision to publish as of the time you wrote this email? Answer. I believe I was extremely upset with the situation that we were in and the time and effort and that was going into it. And I believe that in conjunction with many factors was going through my mind. I mean, I'll embellish and say that I don't like being pushed around, but I also understand the reality of the world. Did you have a sense at the time you wrote this email at 4:38 on the afternoon of May 11th that you were being bullied? Object to form. I believe that I was unduly influenced by a lot of factors. Oh, okay. In all caps in the very last paragraph, you capitalized the phrase more bullying. Was that referring to bullying that you felt was being directed towards you or your company? Yes. And was that bullying that originated from those in the industry who were disappointed to hear of your decision to publish Jawbreakers? Object to form. I believe that, it's hard for me to know exactly, we'd been inundated with a lot of messages. And so, but I suspect it was for people that were in the industry or familiar with the industry. And from people who you understood to be opposed to your decision to publish? Object to form. Correct. At the very end, well, let me go back to the other question I have. Do you acknowledge that your words here suggest that you had not yet finalized a decision not to proceed with publication because of the various references to the possibility of doing so, but with your names disassociated? Object to form. Answer. This is devastating. I don't think I had made a final decision at this point in time. This is a critical juncture in Texas. Tortious interference with a contract is a possibility up to the exact moment that the contract is canceled. Because until it's canceled, it's not canceled. Something that so many people don't understand. Sounds very basic when I say it that way, but until the contract is canceled, contract isn't canceled. You know what? I'm going to cancel that contract. Let me call up and cancel. It's not canceled until you say, look, we're canceling the contract. It's not canceled till it's canceled. Tortious interference can happen up until the moment those words are said. Because is he going to say it? We don't know until he does. So if someone comes in at the last moment and says, Richard Meyer's a pedophile, contract is canceled. That could have influenced that decision up until that moment. That's a critical answer here. Okay, back to burn. Okay, and at the very end, you say you make reference to losing a friend close to family that pissed you off. Who is that person? I think it was Joey. It was Joey? Yes. Okay, because you felt that your relationship with Joey at this time was such that he was close to your family? Correct. And you were worried that if you stuck with your decision to publish, that might alienate Joey? Among other things, yes. Turn to Exhibit 7. And again, this is very important because this other things influencing the decision doesn't actually matter. That's the weird thing in all of this. There could be 1,000 things that influence the decision. The one improper thing that comes in to influence that decision is actionable tortious interference. Period, period, period. It's like a Hebrew bleeding tent in there. Lots of periods. Okay. Turn to Exhibit 7 in this deposition binder, if you can. First of all, just let me ask you to generally confirm that this is a series. This is a series of text messages between your cell phone and that of Mr. Mark Waid that took place between, well, in May of 2018. Okay, I do remember this actually. So is that, in fact, a series of text messages between you and Mr. Waid from May of 2018? Yes, but I'm going to make a clarification. I was texting and responding to a lot of people, and I actually am not. I thought this was someone else when I was texting some of these messages, I think. So I can't remember who I was talking to at the time. There was a whole bunch of texts that I was responding to a variety of people. Is that a thing? No, the Hebrew bleeding tent was a thing in the Bible, in the biblical times. Women would go out during their time and they would bleed in a tent with straw because they didn't have tampons, guys, right? So different ways to handle it. And so I can't remember who I was talking to at the time, but there was a whole bunch of texts that I was responding to a variety of people. I don't think I was aware that this was Mark Waid until later on. And then on these series of texts, when I realized it was Mark, I said that I'm not commenting anymore. Ooh, that stings. That stings. Okay, let me hand you what I've marked as Exhibit 20 to your deposition. Okay. And there's one entry highlighted that I think came to us highlighted. Is that highlighted phone record from your cell phone? Yes. And is that the call to Mark Waid on May 11th, 2018 that's highlighted? Correct. And when did it say it starts? 4:48 p.m.? 4:48, correct. And it ended 27 minutes later. Correct. Okay, so going back to Exhibit 19. You called Mr. Waid back 10 minutes after sending this email to Joey, correct? Yes, I guess so. And 27 minutes after 4:48 p.m. would have been what time? 5:35? Approximately. And the very first text message you have here on Exhibit 7 is 16 minutes later, correct? Correct. So are you thanking Mr. Waid for talking to you that afternoon in this text? Like I said, I don't think so, actually. I think I was talking to somebody else. Who else did you talk to that afternoon about I talked to a multitude of people or texted a lot of people. And I think like one of the people was Timothy Lim, who was at the time friends with, or I'm guessing still friends with, Mr. Meyer and my brother, your brother. Well, my brother was there, so I guess I was talking to him at my house, but I remember talking to a whole bunch of different people, texting a whole bunch of different people, and I may have been confused about who I was texting at the time. Okay, you were at your house that afternoon? Correct. Do you have a landline? I do. Do you have phone records for your landline? That's all we got. That's all we got. So again, this is about establishing as best they can that the decision to do not publish had not been made until that phone call. Critical juncture in there. Also trying to establish that they represent to people that they're from Texas, but they don't seem to do that. So that was not the best answers there, but there you go. So here we go. Antarctic Press. Oh, excuse me. It's official. We're publishing Jawbreakers in September. It will be different than the graphic novel offered on Indiegogo. We'll have a different cover, or a variant cover. Here's the email. Lots of people in this email. So this goes back to, from Brian Denham. Hey, Tim, to Timothy Lim. Great news. Antarctic is interested in publishing the Jawbreaker comic. Antarctic is there as a publisher to Richard in any capacity he needs us. We don't force an agenda, and we welcome to all creators. Kickstarter. There's concern that money would be raised for the Kickstarter project before the art is finished. If the art can be completed before raising money for the printing publishing, that would be preferable. It was suggested that the Kickstarter would probably do better in Richard's hands, working as an individual, than from us as a company, but it's something that can be discussed. We've run over 20 successful Kickstarter projects, and we have a small staff that can handle shipping and storage of books. If the money is raised first through Kickstarter, we can still offer it through Diamond and generate extra sales that way. Let me know if you guys have any more thoughts or concern. So Tim responds, awesome. I'm sure he'll love hearing that. If he has questions, can he PM you on Twitter or email you? The fact that he's getting John Malin on it will be the big selling point. Both of them combined have a substantial following, plus their YouTube presence reaches at least 50,000 people. Brian responds, he can email me. He said not to follow him on Twitter, so I'm not sure. He can send direct messages there. John Malin is a good get. Should be a fun project. There we go. Oh, does this go before that? Okay, so this actually goes before that. So the first email, Tim Lim to Brian, says, Richard and I were talking about, he wanted me to prod y'all to see if you'd be interested in publishing Kickstarter's Jawbreakers one-shot. Don't tell anyone, but the artist he's negotiating with is John Malin. They're expecting a substantial turnout for funding, but wanted to approach y'all first, and he knows that I'm working with you guys. I looked at the Black Ops pages last night and I realized that you have 3, not 5 pages to do. Hope that helps take the edge off. And then he goes back to Brian Denham. Says, hi, Tim. I'm heading for our weekly meeting now. I will bring up Jawbreakers Kickstarter. I have time this week to get started on the pages I need to draw. I'll write you after the meeting. So he's confirming he'll bring it up. And then Tim says, sounds good. Thanks. I'm super stoked. Richard has his fingers crossed. And then we have the meeting decision on March 12th after the meeting to go ahead and publish. So there you go. Next. These messages are in ascending order this time. Brian Denham to Diversity in Comics. Richard, I just heard Comic Pro retailers were going to boycott your book and Antarctic Press if they find out we're going to publish your book. That just shows me we're doing the right thing standing with you. Let me know if you need anything from me today. Then Diversity in Comics to Brian Denham. Who'd you hear that from? I just saw some furry tweeting it and it only has like 6 likes. That's a brutal slapdown. The brutal slapdown. Brian says, I heard it from a retailer who heard it from his boss. Might have gotten blown out of proportion. And then Zach responds with, the only evidence I see is of this. Ryan Higgins says, I never refuse to order a comic or stock a publisher's work. I might tomorrow. I wrote the guy and asked him if he wanted to talk about it. Okay, so this is from Antarctic Press to Joe Dunn. Just got a call from Mark Waid, of all people, looking to warn us of just how badly our association with Rich Meyer might be for us. He stressed he wasn't trying to dictate what we can or can't publish, but he felt we might be entering into this agreement without full awareness of what Rich is like. He mentioned targeted death threats, among other things. Oof. Don't say that, you idiot. I claimed ignorance and said I'd pass along his message and his phone number to Joe Dunn and thanked him for his concern. That's from Doug. Doug. So then Antarctic Press. I still plan to ignore the 2 initial complaints I've received. Oh, wait. Are we in ascending order again? Dang it. Dang it. Let's go back to the beginning. Sorry. Got to go down to the beginning of this email string and read upwards. Okay. Here's the beginning of the email string. Sorry about that. I have to object to my own form there. Megan Killar. Based on the harassment online by Diversity in Comics, I have decided to boycott your company. if you choose to publish Jawbreakers. I am responsible for the diamond order at my retail location, and we will no longer be ordering from a company that supports online harassment and threats. Regards, Megan Killar. Doug says, well, this is interesting. Any thoughts on a response? And he sent that to someone else. So then Brian Denham says, there will be a lot more. Ignore them. A few retailers got together in a secret Facebook group to boycott whatever publisher picked up Jawbreakers. Richard will announce tonight on YouTube who the publisher will be. Some have speculated it's us. That's why you may have gotten this letter early. There will be a lot more this week, but they probably don't order from us anyway. There are a lot more fans supporting us, and there always are. There always are. There are a lot more fans supporting us. Don't worry about these retailers. The customers will order from retailers who support them. These boycott retailers are saying they won't support any of our books if we carry Jawbreakers, but the fans are hearing this and they will boycott the stores and order it directly from us or from other retailers who support their choices. We've already won up by a lot of the fans on Twitter. Fans are going to start buying stuff off the site, so you may see a small uptick in online sales. I'd wager a large uptick, but, you know, there you go. Okay, then Doug responds, well, I guess that's good to know. How did these complaints that led to a boycott even get started? Was it anything of substance or something blown out of proportion or nothing at all? Now we have Brian Denham writing back. Retailers have a group on Facebook. Some of the retailers have heard Jawbreakers would not only be a fundraised Indiegogo, but would be offered in stores. So this happened. There's an image that's not attached. Another retailer posted on Twitter yesterday that if he finds out the publisher of Jawbreakers, he will have to consider a boycott. Richard reached out to one of the retailers to inform him of what's going on. He promised not to rat them out. So that retailer informed Richard. Richard posted on YouTube that retailers are colluding with each other to boycott the unannounced publisher. So the retailers have been trying to figure out it's us. It's all happening earlier today, and some of it's going on right now. Okay, Doug responds to that. Certainly, none of that appears flattering, but neither does it prove how much of that it is true or explain why it might have happened. Also, I'm not sure if the fact that it came from a Richard Myers and is about a Richard Myers is due to odd coincidence or a name spoof or what. Doug. Let's see. Comics and Diversity, Richard Meyer says, just saw the news that you're publishing. Noticed a lot. Someone spoofing it has this. I read that wrong. So this is part of Doug's response. Okay, but none of that explains what these retailers have against Jawbreaker. However, this email I just received might. So this is from a fake Richard Myers account right here. Just saw that the news that you're publishing Richard C. Myers Jawbreakers. Your newest writer has publicly referred to a female Marvel editor as a cum dumpster. Well, is she? I don't know. Who sucked her way to the top. Called an online reporter a effing... Oh, I can't say this is a double F word. An effing F. And suggested writers Brian Bendis, Dan Slott, and Mark Waid were pedophiles. It's not what he said. He said they looked like pedophiles. And they might. He also referred to a transgender DC writer as a effing crazy person, a criminal who is definitely going to kill himself, and it's just when, where, when, and how. Good to know where your standards lie, guys, and that you don't mind being associated with such a class act because you're now tied together at the hip. Hope it's worth it. God, I can't say this enough. That guy was never going to buy your books anyway, ever. He's not your fan. He's not your customer. They never are. They never are. I'll never buy your book again. They never would. They never would. Okay. Then Brian. This is from Joey. Mizaj. Brian, are any of the statements attributed to Richard below true? Oh no. Oh no, not one of these guys. Brian responds, I didn't know about that stuff. I looked it up online. He did call Heather a cum dumpster in a private video for certain elite tier fans of his channel. One of them released a private video to the public. He later publicly apologized. Don't ever apologize, Meyer. Don't apologize to them. You call her a cum dumpster again. Richard has called people pedophiles or they look like pedophiles before. He said those things about Mark Waid and Dan Slott. Well, did they look like pedophiles? Seen some pedophiles in my day. Can't find that line about Mags, the DC transgendered writer, being a effing crazy person, etc., but it might be in one of his videos. Him and Mags have apologized to each other, and then they started up again when a comic writer called out Richard for having a dishonorable discharge, and Mags supported that creator. So there you go. Apparently Mags is an effing crazy person because he didn't have a dishonorable discharge. So there you go. At least as far as I know. Next, so response from Joe Dunn in response to all of this. So this is just, this is 30 minutes later. I've decided on radio silence on Jawbreakers. Essentially ignore any inquiry or email or discussion with anyone. If you get a question, tweet, Facebook post, or call about it, just say, we publish lots of books and I don't have any info on the book at this time. If you have any questions about the book, the creator told us you can contact him and he will answer your questions. Do not engage any interview or request for questions or any inquiry. If they are not satisfied with that answer, be apologetic and tell them any questions will be happily answered by the creator of the book since we cannot talk in his place. We cannot divulge his info, but he can be found on Facebook, Twitter, etc. Brian, if you tweet anything, just be tweeting about other books. No mention of Jawbreakers. Check out these books coming up in whenever. You have been doing a good job on humor and deflection on Twitter, so keep that up. Deflect any response. Be self-effacing. If anyone asks about Jawbreakers, give the aw shucks, sorry, I do not know the answer to that question. Hey, you should ask the creator. If someone emails you, Doug, you can respond. Thanks, we appreciate your email. We are aware of your concerns about whatever. It may be best to contact the creator about those statements so that he can clarify or explain that statement to you since we cannot talk for him. You reach him via Twitter or Facebook since we cannot divulge his personal information. Now, Doug responds, I still plan to ignore the 2 initial complaints I've received. I'll give them that response if they write me again. The second one seemed to come from Richard himself, though. Doug. And then says, just got a call from Mark Waid of all people. We read that a minute ago. So that's how that email exchange went up. Did he really make those statements? The real question, Joey, is do we care? Why do we care? Why do we care what statements he's made? Okay, so this is from Joe Dunn to Joey. This is on Friday, May 11th. This is probably the last. I'm going to read this and then we'll read super chats and then we'll wrap up the show, guys. As you are all well aware, we are in the Kobayashi Maru of comic books, a no-win situation. As you are all aware, we have agreed to publish Jawbreakers, which is co-authored by a very controversial figure, or authored by a very controversial figure. This has created a passionate response on both sides of this unfortunate equation in the comic book industry. This has essentially put us in a no-win situation. We could not release this book even though we are contractually obligated to do so, and succumb to social media pressure. It feels a bit like we're being bullied to not release the book. Or we could publish the book and continue to get the wrath we have undergone these past days from a multitude of sources. So we're stuck in between a rock and a hard place. No. Listen, any business owner out there, when you're in a no-win situation and an impossible decision and you have a contract, honor the contract. Or try to negotiate your way out of it. Can't just cancel. That's the win. That's always the win, by the way. Always the win is going with the contract. Because if you don't, you might be sued for breach. As you all know, we have taken a silence line regarding this situation. There are 2 reasons for my decision to do this. One is that with any viral controversies on the internet, they tend to be put to the side after a couple of days, especially over the weekend. True. Second, that gives us time to meet on Monday to make a decision on this situation. My most important concern is to protect everyone at AP, and I hope you make a decision about our direction on Monday. Or I hope to make a decision. But in the meantime, I am going to rant, not at each of you personally, but to everyone who has put us in this situation. On Monday, we're going to vote on this situation, and in lieu of that impending vote, I want everyone to be aware of the rant I will most likely give. No matter the decision, I will take the heat for the decision, so there will be nobody getting thrown under a bus and nobody will point fingers. I can take the heat and I will take the brunt of the criticism. Now, originally, I was going to list the pros and cons of our decision, but I realized that this is not just a pros and cons thing. This has become a personal issue in many regards, no black and white answers. But we can go over the basic facts. In its purest form, this is a decision on whether we as a company can separate the art from the artist. Do we hold accountable the fact that this person has said many mean-spirited and controversial statements, which goes beyond the normal opinions? It is where we are going to draw the line. Do we draw the line at Rod saying many insulting, condescending things about conservatives and their policies? Or is it Ben saying some things about liberals? Are those tolerable lines and opinions we can accept since we know them both? We can never vet a creator, but we all know bias goes with any decision we make. We meet a creator we don't like, I'm sure in the back of your mind you would say that I would never give that creator a chance to publish their work, even though we are supposed to be unbiased. If anyone had a personal grudge with someone, I would certainly take that into account, especially if we decided to consider their work. That is vastly unfair, but I know that life is unfair. Are we drawing a line at this creator for his severely offensive rhetoric? He did not commit a crime, but he expressed an offensive opinion. I will accept any line that you all vote for, but my rant to everyone else in the industry, where do you draw that effing line? And where is the line drawn on these types of issues? If a creator has 10 offensive tweets 5 years ago, does that preclude them from being published now? Or is the line 15 tweets or 20 or just 2 or even 1 tweet from last year? Where is the proverbial line for any creator? What if we want to publish someone who is Islamic or an anti-abortionist or a socialist or have a certain sexual orientation? Are we precluded from publishing them since they may have a statement or opinion that you do not agree with? Are we now restricted from publishing someone who may be an ultra douchebag? We are an all-inclusive publisher for the very we believe in all-inclusivity. Have we gotten to the point where when someone from certain religion does something bad, we blame the whole religion? When a cop does something bad, we accuse all the cops of being bad? When one person of color commits a crime, we condemn the entire race? When one politician or media member lies, we think all politicians and media members lie? Well, all politicians do. So now that we publish a book that people do not agree with because of the creator of the book, for whatever reason, people are making judgments on our entire publication line, F them. Whoa. Here we go. I will admit that to a certain aspect, this was a financial decision for me. I knew that he was a popular online figure. I just did not realize that he was that polarizing. As everyone knows, we were running on fumes. Over the past 2 years, I've had to put close to $70,000 of my own money to keep Antarctic Press afloat, to make sure bills are paid on time, to keep the lights and phone on, to keep the printers going. I know currently this is not just a financial decision, and prior to this poop storm, I looked at it as a purely financial decision, and I thought we could handle it using My Hero as a measure. I was extremely happy that My Hero saved our butt these past weeks. His online sales for has been remarkable and a godsend despite the flack we received, which is tame compared to what we've been getting with Richard. What Jawbreakers did on Indiegogo did put some dollar signs in my eyes. Could I finally get some sustainability for Antarctic Press without me having to contribute constantly? Could he bring the fans to us as My Hero did? Now again, he could have. Now again, my rant again, not to you, but to everyone else. I know this is going to be a purely financial decision, but I know that he could help us financially, as I know his fans are passionate and supporting. But it bothers the F out of me that we are getting these industry professionals and pundits telling us how we should run our business, even as an all-inclusive supporter of creators' rights. I will stand by our record of inclusion for any sex, race, religion, social standing, and sexual orientation, any other effing thing you can think of. But in this case, that is completely irrelevant now. But how many of those people really support Antarctic Press? Does Rich Johnston only write about Antarctic Press when there is some sort of controversy? Would any of these industry supporters really support us if we called for help? If I asked Leah Hernandez to do some art for us, or Mark Waid to write us a story to help out, Do you think she or he would do it for free? Of course not. How many of these people on the internet telling us what to do actually bought an Antarctic Press book, both fans and retailers? How many copies of the 300 sales on Rochelle or the 600 sales on Adventure Finders did they buy? Or even worse, the 1,400 copies of Gold Digger? While Richard may be the most offensive F in the whole world, he came to us with fans and financial support when no other professional did so. Even though I do not agree with Tim's political opinions when I talked to him, all he wanted to do is make sure Antarctic Press was viable and financially supported, and he followed up with his fans coming to us and buying his book. And for all the posers who are telling our all-inclusive company what to do and how to do it and never buy an Antarctic Press book, F you. All you do is work, all you do work for AP way beyond the call of duty, and I will have your back. Even if we decide to publish this book, I will most likely remove any of our names from anywhere in the book. Antarctic Press will still be on the publisher, and we will not hide that fact. But if we publish the book, we can remove our personal association with it, which gets me to not to the credo of the company, creator rights, or the financial aspect, but the moral aspect. Not the moral aspect of agreeing or disagreeing with Richard, but now another effing rant. I do not give a flying F if you agree or disagree with Richard. But we now have to make a decision on a book based on guilt by association. It does not matter that we are all-inclusive creators' rights company, but now I have to deal with the repercussions of this guilt. Richard made some very offensive, inflammatory comments about many people in the industry, and now because of that, could that come back to harm some of you individually? You would hope any personal attack on someone by Richard would not translate into, because we published him, we must be like him. But I effing know life is effing unfair, guilt by association. People are now taking us to task on Jawbreakers. Now they may take it out on their innocent people, us, just because of effing guilt by association. Those effing people do not see the effing double standard irony of those types of actions. Richard's actions are bullying, but the reaction to this is more bullying by people who are against Richard. Effing double standard irony. If I don't like a person or a product, I don't effing buy it. If I don't like a politician, I don't vote for them. But to give us threats of boycotts, etc., just because of our association with Richard, Christ, that is so effing unfair, and I know life is unfair, but that makes them as bad as Richard's actions, and what makes it worse is they don't see it. It is justified in their minds to make a point. This does not absolve Richard. I think he is an ass online, and I think he knows he is an ass online, and I would tell him that, and he would agree with me. It is because of that, I may lose a friend close to family to his effing action, and that royally pisses me off. So we've got Joey's email here, and let's see what Joey has to say. This is from Joey to Joe. It appears AP is moving. I'm honestly not sure you understand what you're getting into. I was at the comic book store, and even Bob said so, and he said, if Joe thinks this is going to blow over, it isn't. Yes, it is. It always is. It always is going to blow over. The internet moves. Internet forgot that Meyer had a case until this was filed. The internet had literally forgotten. That's how crazy it is. They moved on. Now it's back. But they would have moved on. Anyway. I thought about it long and hard. I haven't been able to sleep or work, and that's because it boils down to this. I'm not comfortable being associated with this guy. It's not his work, and it's not his belief, it's his conduct. And if it were any of the other guys at AP that conducted themselves similarly, I would divest AP of them as well. There's standards of civil and professional conduct I believe in. This guy obviously has issues. I've told Doug to take my name off the books immediately. I'm also worried about how this may affect other AP creators in San Diego and the booth. Please be careful. There you go. There you go. All right. Let me switch over to here. Oh, did I not put? No, there's the chat. Whoo, guys, that's a lot of reading and talking. All right. Wade's exhibit is clearly the worst because it's Wade's own words. But Joe's exhibit is good. Shows that they I mean, he's clearly conflicted. Has not made the decision at this point. He hasn't. And most importantly, had he called Richard Meyer and announced the cancellation of the book? No. Had he announced it to anybody at this point? Can't find it. Can't find an announcement about the cancellation of the book. So, all right. Let's let me get back to this point in the super chats where we were. There are not a million of them, but there are some. So here we go. DFW Knights. I think we're here. Yeah, DFW Knights says, yes, but if Waid didn't already know that there were two different people, he could have mistaken Ben for Joe. Possible. Miss Meadowkitty says, Nick, personal question. Are you also fashionably tardy and slightly bisexual when arriving to court? Only if the weather's really, really bad. Punk Pantha. Vic had a Fear the Beard patch on his table today, lol. Oh, good. Good. It took me 2 hours to get through the line. And when I left, it was as long as when I got there. Now I can say I've literally stood with Vic. That's awesome. Can't wait to meet him at Matsuri. Karoku says, I mean, Real's visitors were from Kamehacon equals free signature. We don't know how many, but certainly. Facetious Sage says, do you think Monica is staying relatively quiet because she'd like to watch Ron get effed a while for once? Oh, brutal. DFW Knight says, in multicultural theory, white supremacy can refer to highly valuing things like timeliness, yes, no logic, and self-reliance. Pack your own lunch has been denounced as white supremacy. No joke. Yeah, I know. And credit scores and all that stuff. Everything is white supremacy if it furthers a narrative, right? Miss Meadowkitty says, hit or miss. I bet they never miss, huh? Mark has charges. I bet never stick. Yeah? Don't know. Dave Mark says, what if you refuse to speak during a deposition? Then you have to speak or you'll be in contempt of court. You have to speak. You have to answer. MW says, booger sugar. That was my itchy nose. Automata says, object to form. Brandon B says, can defense counsel stop being a tool? Object to form. Eloquent Sarcasm says, Wizard's first rule, people are stupid. That Umbrella Guy, hey there. So much crazy in so few days. Thanks, Tug, for commenting, buddy. Thanks for checking out the show. The Herald Studio says, Mark Waid is rolling through a minefield like it's a field of flowers. This is becoming an open and shut case because of his mouth isn't stitched shut. Joey W. Bush says, more blood for the blood throne, more skunks for the skunk pond. Night of OPEC says, man, this is heartbreaking to hear. I was a fan of Gold Digger in the 90s, and I was ecstatic to hear Antarctic was still around. Hearing the SJWs have their claws in even them now, a once scrappy and rebellious little indie press, makes my eyes bleed. Short Round says, today will be the revenge of the beard when the suit is filed. Looking at what equipment I have to do glasses for you. Shout out War Horses for Vets. War Horses for Vets. Big shout out. Talbot Link says, this crap makes me miss the stories Steve Bissett used to tell me about the old days in the industry over drinks on movie nights at the comic school. Eric Pewmonger says, look at how they tried to massacre my boy Zach. Flashbacks of being bullied made me tear up a little. Thanks, Nick. What you're doing here is important. Thank you. Lycan645 says, planning to do anything on the Avi Yemeni deportation after Comedy Central basically swatted him via FBI? Haven't heard of it at all. Keep up the good work, Nick. No idea what that is. Cody Martinez says, I've been viewing your videos, but forgot to subscribe. Sorry. Oh, please subscribe. Anybody else who has forgotten to subscribe, also check your subscription often. Sometimes YouTube does unsubscribe people from channels, including mine. No idea why, but they do. So please hit that subscribe button. Would love to have you here and plenty more to talk about. Kevin C, thanks for donating. And Christian W, hey, if you need me for a Kamehacon video, I'm available. I work the con the whole weekend. Yeah, buddy, I got your DM. Or email or whatever. Let's talk about that. It'd be great. Be great to have some reporting in. I'll talk to you. I got to see what my week looks like tomorrow. Kevin C says AP running on fumes and Mark Waid is bullying them out of potential money-making lifeline. Disgusting. Of course. There's no it's all, they don't care about the victims, the real victims, the businesses that get shredded by this. I mean, this business had to shred their own credibility, right? How do you do, are you going to do a contract with Antarctic Press? Are they going to pull out if someone gets their panties in a bunch over something you said? I mean, what do you do? DLJ Screwjob says, so how long do you think it will take the depositions for Soye, being a first party and all of them in the first round to be public / happen at all? Ty did say they were moving at light speed in law terms. It could be very, very fast. I don't want to spoil any surprises. But Texas has some very funny rules about depositions, and they have a different set of normal behavior that happens that is not what the rules say. The rules are very different. So I can't spoil anything. Can't do it. We'll just have to wait and see. So there you go. Humphrey Horsehead, no, I did not talk about the Florida thing at all. I think there's some more information coming out about it very soon. I'm going to wait until that info is out. All right, guys. This has been a wonderful show. Thank you so much for sticking with me, hanging out through this deposition stuff. It is very black and white, back and forth, kind of boring stuff, but it's important parts of this stuff. It's important to get this stuff into the evidence record under oath from these people, from people like Mark Waid. His words are going to burn him. So there you go, guys. I don't know if I'm going to play on Twitch tonight. Very, very tired. I've streamed now for about 5 hours tonight, and I've got a bunch coming up over the week. So we'll see. If I do, it'll probably be in like an hour, for just an hour or so. I got to get some food in me. But thank you all for watching. You guys have a great night. See you tomorrow. Watch that Twitter. Peace.